Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, in TV land and in the audience here, and Harbor Board Advisory members. This is the regular meeting, Thursday, December 1st, 2016, of the Harbor Advisory Board. We have a quorum. The only person who is absent is Ron Reisner. So, right now, I'd like to have a moment of silence. Dana, could you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And at this point in time, we have any board member announcements or presentations. I'll start off with Jean.
It's beginning to be a lot like Christmas, and wintertime is coming. If you have a boat, you need to make sure your pennant lines are secure. You've got, chafing gear. We've had some boats come loose here the last couple of weeks, so it's time to check your boats.
Thank you, Jean. Well taken right now. And Alan?
No announcement.
Lynn?
Nothing, thank you.
I wanted to extend a thank you to the community for the drive-in movie night that the Friends of the Morro Bay Harbor Department had on November 5th, Saturday night. It turned out well, as usual. We're on pins and needles with the wind, and luckily it calmed down enough so we were able to raise our 45-foot screen and show two beautiful surf movies. We had South Bay Wild out there serving fish tacos. It was a good event. We raised some money, and I do want to make an announcement that you'll see forthcoming through some PSAs. We have made a decision, the Friends of the Morro Bay Harbor Department, to start a capital campaign to raise money to build a new Harbor Department office and a restroom. And so you'll see and hear more about that forthcoming. Neil?
No announcements for me.
Dana?
Yes. On the overhead. Anyways, we have our annual sale of our calendars starting now, a little earlier than we have in the past. Takes us a while to get all the photos together. Anyways, it's a great calendar. Has a good tide chart in it and everything. Also has our events for the yacht club. But this is a fundraiser for our Youth Sailing Foundation. And with a $20 donation, you could have one of these beautiful calendars too. If you look over here, I'm holding up one so that you can see the tide chart as it comes through here. The graphics makes it really easy to read, plan your weekends or whatever, go paddleboarding or fishing, whatever you're going to do, go sailing. You know how ripping the current is or how nice it is. So you can get these. You can go to our website, mbysf.org, and you'll find them there. And we have PayPal, and you can pick them up at our happy hour, or you can we'll send them to you. So
You have them for sale tonight, Dana?
I do have some with me in my car for all of you.
Okay. This is the time that we have for public comment. Do we hear someone here? Red?
Good evening. My name is Robert Davis, and I live in Morro Bay. Last month, when I was on my way over here, I ran into the mayor at the post office, and I told him I was going to come over and observe the Harbor Advisory Board, and he said, "You're going to like them. They're a lively group." And he was right. You guys are a lively group, and I like you a lot. But I wanted to say first tonight that I love the advisory boards in Morro Bay. You all are the working front for council decisions, and you do the heavy lifting that helps the city move its vision forward. I want to specifically talk tonight about the staff report on the working waterfront. I really like the report. It's well done, it's informative, and it lays a good basis for discussion. And I think that the working waterfront designation is very important because, to me, that's the core of what Morro Bay is, a working waterfront. I admire your breadth of vision designating the working waterfront from the rock to the marina. But I have to say that as a council member, I would feel overwhelmed at the length of that designation. You're throwing up a big fish onto the dais, and that's going to be very hard for the council to digest. What would make me feel more comfortable would be starting with a definition of what is a working waterfront. I like the phrase water dependent. Of course, that phrase could also include the Morro Bay Power Plant because it was dependent upon intake water and outflow water. And you could even extend that to the wastewater treatment plant because that is dependent upon water outflow. But it's a place to start. And maybe a way to look at a definition of a working waterfront is to examine visitor expectations. If an out-of-town visitor drives down Beach Street to the stop sign at the Embarcadero and sees a sign that says, "Turn right to see the working waterfront," what do they expect to see when they get there? The elephant in the room is Measure D. I hear a lot of talk about how we should be interpreting Measure D. Measure D is about fishing, and I'm not sure that we should let an effort to interpret that drive how we define our working waterfront. I would look for something broader than just fishing supporting industries. So I'm hoping that you will talk some more about your vision of Morro Bay's working waterfront. And to me, the key is the phrase from your staff report, which is clear definition of water dependent. And that's kind of a local designation. It can run the gamut from what Florida designated, which is virtually everything, to what Maine designated, which is pretty much confined to fishing. But I want to be clear, I don't have a problem with the geographic limits of the working waterfront as long as we know what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I'm not going to stay tonight, but I wanted to come down and personally thank you for what you do. So thank you.
Red, thank you, and I wanted to also extend a congratulations as our new city councilman.
Thank you. I'm not yet a city councilman, but
Pretty soon.
yes. All right.
Any questions for Red? Gene?
Are you going to be our liaison person?
I don't know. Matt's coming back to the council next week. Or at least he was the last time I heard. And apparently Mayor Irons makes the appointments. And so I don't know. But I am interested in this if Matt is not, or as an alternate. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's good. Good stuff. So no other public comments. Our consent calendar, we have no items, and Why is that? Don't we have a agenda from previous or anything? Whatever happened to those things? It seems to be getting lost here.
They're not getting lost, we just haven't gotten to the minutes yet.
Oh, you haven't got the minutes yet?
No.
Last time I was here, 2 months ago, we didn't have the minutes.
No, we had the minutes from the previous.
Okay. It's taking us a little longer to...
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Harbor Department status report. So that would be you, Eric? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and I'll try and go as quick as we can here. We got a couple pretty meaty items on the agenda. So statistics through the month were 8 emergency responses, 93 calls for service, 19 assists to other agencies, 11 enforcement contacts, and 13 hazardous entrance condition days. Just echo what Gene said with the winter coming. It seems like we've got a winter that's got an active North Pacific. We've got a lot of surf out there. We've got an incident that occurred coming up a few paragraphs down here that I'll talk about, but just remind people, crab season, a lot more people are recreational crabbing. Call us or call the Coast Guard. There's just a lot of energy out there in the ocean right now, and it's dredging's coming here fairly soon, which I'll get to as well, but just remind people to be careful out there. This last month we had super moon, which I guess is the closest the moon had been to the planet in quite a while. Created some large king tides, high tides, and minor overflooding. No damage reported anywhere that I was aware of. November 8th, we had a baby gray whale enter the harbor, stayed for a couple hours. We ended up chasing it out with the Harbor Patrol boat, with trying to make noise and just shoo it on out because we didn't want it to get beached somewhere up with the high and low tides or get further back in the bay where it couldn't get out, and it did eventually leave. On November 9th, Morro Bay Police Department promoted their newest sergeant from one of their officer ranks. Sergeant Metafogo has been with the department since this February. He was 8 years over in Tulare Police Department. He served as a patrol officer and an enforcement officer, training officer, and corporal and detective over there. So I'm sure you'll see him around. Great guy, super nice guy. So say hi when you see him. November 14th, Harbor Patrol Officer Stein and Green responded to 2 persons in a kayak in the bay from a capsized kayak. 2 adult female victims fell into the water and were swept towards another boat. They were able to grab a mooring ball and chain and hang on until we came and got them, and we went and retrieved the kayak. The tidal flow was so strong that the kayak was doubled around the mooring chain when they got to it, so just be careful when you're out there in the water. November 15th, Stein and Schaefer responded to an overturned kayak inside the harbor mouth. True to form, or true to his training, Kyle Schaefer, also our lifeguard supervisor, stripped out of his Harbor Patrol uniform. He's always wearing his reds down below. He's got his trunks on down below. I think he lives in those things. And he dove in after the guy and got him back over to Widow Walls Beach. The fellow apparently was intoxicated, not very appreciative of being rescued, and got very combative, and the police department came down and took him off. So that was an interesting incident. That's my phone. Pardon me. November 20th, and this is the incident I referred to earlier. A small motor vessel with the name of Taking Line went out, was advised that the entrance was hazardous, and for him to take a good long look at it. He came past Target Rock and just kept right on going, went straight out to the south. My officers filmed him going over a couple pretty steep waves, got lucky. I think he was going out to go talk about crab traps, go check on some crab pots that he'd put out because he knew the swell was coming up. The swell was 12 to 14 feet, breaking all the way across. He made it out, came back a couple hours later, pretty much on the same path. The way my officers described it, had he been surfing, he would have gotten one heck of a wave because he rode this wave right in the pocket in the boat. Fortunately, it didn't capsize or pitch pull, and he made it in and was given a rather stern talking to by the Coast Guard nest when he came in and was boarded. So just a reminder, it's the ocean's no place to play when it gets that big. So just.
What, was the harbor entrance closed at that time, or was not?
No, the Coast Guard, so last year they had the authority on a spot basis to close the harbor, to declare it unnavigable for vessels and stop them from going through. They do not have that authority this year without going back to Long Beach and re-getting it every time. So they're not quite as nimble as they are. They're working on trying to reestablish that, but this year they don't have that.
On the training front, and we had a training exercise last night as well with on the 5th Wednesday of every month, which occurs a couple times a year. All the fire agencies in the county get together and do a joint training exercise. This time it was Morro Bay's turn to host, and we did a training exercise in the bay of a pier fire, boat fire, water rescue, a bunch of different elements thrown in. Turned out pretty well. Kudos to Becca and Jeff Simpson from the fire department for putting that together. November 10th to 13th, K-38 was here doing their jet ski water rescue training for DBW's classes. DBW's classes for that are all being held here now through K-38. So we had that November 10th through 13th. They're coming back December 10th through 13th with another one, and then they'll continue on through the year as those classes evolve. November 7th to 11th, my officers Stein and Green went to Department of Boating and Waterway Marine Firefighting class down in Marina Del Rey that was put on by the LA County lifeguards, I believe, and their fire boats. And then November 30th, we had a training, well, that's when we just had fireboat training drill with no, local folks attending. As of this writing, I hadn't, that hadn't occurred, but as of last night it did. The fishing and hunting front, recreational Dungeness crab season opened November 5th. I believe, Alan, when does commercial start? November 15th, does that sound right? Okay, well, it's open now, so recreational, both recreational and commercial crab season are open. Last day for recreational rockfish will be December 31st. Waterfowl hunting season started, so it's going on in the back bay. And then a reminder to commercial fishing slip holders that your fish tickets are due for qualification by the end of January to keep your slip for next year. Recent council activity at their November 15th meeting. City Council adopted Resolution 7615, which approved another amendment to Great American Fish Company lease, which gave the lease another 25 years for doing certain development. Part of it was for post-development, or past development had been done, the new dock and gangway was put in. The future development will be in the space between GAFCO and the South T Pier. That's part of their lease site. They'll be putting in a fish market and outdoor patio and view deck area. Past events, Bill, you mentioned the movie night at the Rock. That went very well. I'll mention the other sponsors just to give them their due as well for their great sponsorship. Surfline, Burgess Landing, the radio station 97.3 The Rock, which was broadcast on, the Shell Shop, Founders Community Bank, England Associates Insurance, and then again South Bay Wild for producing the food, providing the food. And I think about $4,500 was raised for that. Sound about right? And the estimated... and moving on, next one, November 6th, Morro Bay Triathlon occurred at Coleman Beach. The triathlon portion, it was inside the bay. They had it inside the bay paddle and swim. Was going to be from Cayucas Pier down this way, but due to the surf and swell, I think they decided to have it here inside the bay. Approximately 700 participants in that. They're anticipating 1,000. They're trying to shoot for 1,000 next year. Upcoming events in December 3rd, this Saturday, Women for Fishery will be officially dedicating their For Those Who Wait statue that's been out near Target Rock for a while now. That's at 2 o'clock out at Target Rock, so we'll be there as well. So anybody that's interested in that, it'd be great for you to be out there. December 10th, the Light of Boat Parade has been moved, as we've been announcing for the last few months, from the first Saturday of December to the second Saturday, which is the 10th, because of some really low tides on the 3rd, so we decided to move it. Starts at 6:30 p.m. There's pre-parade activities that are being sponsored by the city at Tidelands Park. We're putting up a crab trap holiday tree, Christmas tree. Just went and got some traps from the Frenches today. We'll be getting some more next week and be putting that up. Mr. and Mrs. Claus, I believe, will be there at Tidelands Park for the kids, and they'll have some entertainment. I believe the Whitecaps will be there and some vendors. There's a flyer for the Light of Boat Parade attached to the staff report. January 1st, Cayucas Polar Bear Dip happening again. We generally go down there and help that event and help Cayucas Fire with water safety, as does the Coast Guard. So we'll be bringing our boats and probably a jet ski down there as well. And the Winter Bird Festival is January 13th to 16th again this year. Where approximately 500 bird lovers every year visit in Morro Bay and various areas. It's all around the coastal county. It's not just here in Morro Bay, but we host it, and it's been a great event and very popular. So check their website for details. And finally, not on here, so a couple of photos of the gray whale in there. Polly's last day, December 30th. So I believe that's a Friday or Thursday. Can't remember. Whatever day December 30th is, or 31st. It's 30th? I think it's 31st. So that's our last day, so come say hi to Polly. I believe she's still going to be working somewhere here on the waterfront as a part-time basis, so you may still see her around. And with that, any
Is
questions?
there going to be a party? A going away party?
Polly didn't want a big going away party. I think we're going to have a lunch with her later this month and spend some time with her as a staff, as a department. But she didn't want a big party. So best just to come on in and give her a hug and let her know what you're thinking. Next year, I'll throw in the Harbor Advisory Board. Dates for next year, I intend at the February meeting, assuming we cancel January, the first meeting of the year, where we'll reseat new or returning members. What I'll be intending to do is adopt the schedule for the upcoming year so that we can put that out. And then if we intend to cancel the July and January meeting into the future, we'll just do it at one time in February so I don't have to bring this back again and again. Dana, looks like you have a question. Okay. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Eric. Does anyone have any questions for Eric? Hearing, yeah, Dana?
I saw the survey boat down at the parking lot, launch ramp.
Oh, thank you. I meant to mention that. Yes, Corps of Engineers dredging was awarded to a company called AHTNA, A-H-T-N-A. They've never been here before. They're up in Napa right now, demobilizing from dredging the Napa River as it goes into the San Francisco Bay. They should be here about any time, starting to bring in equipment. They'll be staging it at the base of the rock, kind of at the southwest or southeast edge of the rock, down below the rock there, where they'll be bringing in their equipment, and then bringing all their barges and all their equipment's coming by land. They'll be putting it together, probably either at Associated Pacific or off of the revetment there. They're going to be bringing big trucks and bringing things down and tinker toying it together. And so they should be starting sometime in, hopefully by mid-December. And they're dredging all the way primarily from just inside the harbor entrance, the sand trap area, kind of adjacent to the south jetty, all the way into the Inlet Moore Bay, doing the whole channel. If they have extra time and money, depending on how it goes with quantities, they'll start going and getting the entrance, but they're not going to really go after too much in the entrance, one, because it's just not the right equipment for it, and that's not what was contracted for, and that's really what gets left for the Aquina to come and do every year, which should be coming as well. It's in the President's work plan, or in the Corps' work plan, to fund it again for the Aquina coming this year, so we should see that in the spring.
Now, is this the extent of the dredging? I know that we talked about also having an extended money, and that you were going to go all the way back to the State Park Marina, at least the channel there. Is it going to be the same company or a different company?
This is all the Corps job, and the federal channel ends right off the Inlet Moore Bay. But that's the extended money they did get this year. I forget what the exact figures were, $5 or $6 extra million. So they were able to, over last year's budget and this year's federal budget, get enough to do the entire entrance, including the Aquina, all the way from the entrance improvement project all the way back to the Inlet Moore Bay, the full federal channel. They've got 90 days total time from award of contract, our notice to proceed, which has already occurred. So that's regulatorily, they're proposing to do this, and believe their work plan is to do this all by pipeline. So even, which I've never seen a dredge go really much past the South T-pier of the pipeline. They usually bring in excavators or hopper barges after that. They're proposing to do it all by pipeline, and the disposal areas on north of the rock on the beach as a nearshore disposal. So their environmental constraint is going to be the start of the snowy plover season on March 1st. So, which coincides pretty darn closely with the end of their 90 days anyway.
And in previous discussions that we've had, there's no chance to try to do any dredging of the Back Bay Marina at this point in time?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Gene?
When they use the pipeline, will the pipeline be on the shore side or the mooring side? And if you're in a boat in a mooring, how do you get through the pipeline?
Yet to be determined. They're coming on December 7th or 8th for their pre-construction meeting. Believe their intent is to submerge it the entire way and then just bring it up when it needs to, where it comes up out of the water to go across the beach.
Okay.
But that's our concern too, because even when they submerge it in the past, occasionally the dredge burps a bubble and the pipe pops up. So yeah, that's our concern too, is where is it going to come popping up?
Okay, any other questions? Dana?
Yeah, I saw the Lady Washington here. Are they doing tours, or do you know what's that's?
Yeah, the lady's here, and the Hawaiian Chieftain is coming within a couple of days as well. They'll be doing tours, and I believe they're going to go out and do sailing as well.
All right. Okay, hearing none, let's move on. The next on our agenda here is the update from the Marine Services Facility Boatyard Ad Hoc Committee. And Dana, that you being the chair, do you have anything to report tonight? Where do you stand on the RFQ?
Yes, I have a report. A contingent of us met at Eric's office. That would be Alan and Ron and I. And Eric had started a first draft of the RFQ, and with our input, our concerns, and our ideas, we got a lot of work done. And then he has since added that all into the draft, and we're continuing on. We're going to be getting back to him with all our comments, the entire ad hoc committee, including Jeremiah with the Fishermen's Organization and Lex Bell with the National Estuary Program. So we hope to get this out as quickly as we can to the council in January. And in the past, previously, you've expressed for us to just go ahead with this. So we just want to reaffirm that, to proceed forward with this. I think it's working out really well. We're focused on the criteria that the HAB has put together, and at the same time, we're trying to keep it loose enough to get many applicants as we can, and also for some creativity there. So I think it's working out well. We hope to have something very soon to the council.
Thank you,
and
Dana.
that's my report.
Any questions for Dana? Okay, the update from the Finance and Budget Ad Hoc Committee on committee's recent activities. Neil?
We have not met, and we have nothing to report.
C3, update from the Eelgrass Ad Hoc Committee on committee recent activities. Lynn?
We have not had a meeting since the last report.
Okay. And then the update from the Marine Sanctuaries Ad Hoc Committee on committee's recent activities. Ron being the chair, I don't think that we've met. I will speak for him, so there's nothing to report. And C5, update from the Working Waterfront Ad Hoc Committee on committee's recent activities.
Let's see. Our committee met with Eric and a couple of consultants from Michael
Baker.
Was it 2 weeks ago? Last Friday? Or was it last Friday? Anyways, we met. And we discussed our concerns of what we consider the entire waterfront to be a working waterfront. They went over their concerns that they're just getting to the waterfront in their development of the LCP, and they appreciated us having a meeting. We expressed our concern that we felt that the waterfront was a major component in the LCP, and it needs to be addressed correctly, not just put aside from the people uptown. We felt that the waterfront is vital to Morro Bay. They were also concerned with the lateral access along the waterfront, and that seemed to take up a good part of our discussion, and how there would be interconnecting cross paths and traffic patterns and what conflicts we might have in that aspect right there. They also gave us a, what would you describe it, Dana? A wish list for us to fill in? Yeah. And anything else you have to add?
No, I think you pretty well covered it. I thought it was very informative for both them and our understanding of what the council and the city staff and what the consultant is trying to put together. So we kind of have some homework, I think.
Yes.
to add
And
to
then
it.
we're trying to schedule a meeting probably the first couple of weeks of December to gather up some more people involved in this decision here. So.
Now, one of the things that I've read, Gene, was that our task here as the Harbor Advisory Board was to come up with a working waterfront concept. And one of the ways to do that would be to tie into Michael Baker and this whole LCP, and that would be a way of addressing that concept. Is that still the approach that we're thinking of taking, or is this, I'm just kind of...
Yes, I think so. I think we might have a dual-pronged approach here. One, we'll work through the LCP language, and also we mentioned that perhaps we want to may have a tier of working waterfront category, and so we could enhance the working waterfront if you are doing something that is directly involved with the waterfront, and maybe they have a different rate fee for their percentage. And then I want to comment on the submittal that Ron gave to us, his report. Excellent report. It's like 19 pages of heavy-duty, great report. So if you get a chance to read it, I would take the agenda and read it. So
Which we gave to the Michael Baker folks as well.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, gentlemen. Any questions for Gene or Dana? Hearing none, we'll get into C6, which is the review of the revised Centennial Parkway Plaza concept plan for recommendation to the City Council. As everyone knows, we were involved in a dual meeting with the planning, the City Council, and ourselves, and we were presented with a Centennial Parkway concept, a couple of them, and we gave our opinions, and they went back and took those opinions, RRM, the firm, and came up with another conceptual plan here, and we're to look at that tonight. Eric is going to explain, and we should hopefully give our viewpoints of what we think. Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you for doing the background for me. That was great. So as you know, we had a joint meeting with Council, Planning Commission, and HAB back in September, and took a fair amount of input, and then Council subsequently took it in their council meeting that same evening and directed staff to go with option A, but with some of the features out of option B, but with option A being the preferred alternative. The things that came out of option B were functional pier, functional wooden pier on the water side, the peephole in the deck of the pier. As you know, the original option B, I think, was an all-glass bottom pier. That didn't get a lot of support, but they did think that some sort of a viewing through the bottom of the pier would be useful. Option A includes elevator, chessboard area, fire pit, the amphitheater look. We'll get some graphics here on the screen here in a minute. And then option B, again, 12-foot sidewalks, wider, more prominent Embarcadero crosswalk element, and then low-level lighting. So here's graphically what the two options are melded together. You have hopefully a larger scale version in front of you as well. So that is sort of the fancy artful part one, and then there's as big as I could get it on the screen on a PowerPoint. So what we're really looking for here tonight is three primary questions. First question, and we've got larger versions over here that if we want to step over there against the wall or bring them up here and talk, or if you can't read the little tiny print and see what all those things are, we can do that. But the three primary questions are, number one, do you believe the city should move forward with the Plaza concept for Centennial Parkway? And it's really a simple yes or no. Yes, move forward. No, keep the area as it is for the foreseeable future. Question two, do you have any comments on the Plaza concept as presented, which is probably where most of the discussion will occur. Items you don't like, items you do like, and so forth. And question number three, what is your preference for traffic flow in the Embarcadero between Harbor and Marina Streets? One way, two way, and do you have any other comments on traffic flow features or orientation? So we'll start, I guess, with question number one. Do you believe the city should move forward in some way, shape, or form with this? Knowing at this point, nothing's funded, nothing's been budgeted, this is really just conceptual. Several different potential paths to fund this would be through other development in the city, paying towards this, grants and loans, and then city general fund or harbor fund. So all that stuff's out on the table, but nothing has really been seriously considered at this point. We're just really at the conceptual stage. So first question being, do we support the Plaza concept in general? And should the city continue to move forward with this?
Okay. So would you like to tackle these questions one at a time?
Yeah, it's probably going to be best.
So as we go through this then, simple yes or no, I mean, and then with some backup, of course, is what is your thought here, Gene, on Plaza concept for Centennial Parkway?
I understand it's just a conceptual idea, but in any conceptual plan, you have to have some idea how much it's going to cost. And do we have any ideas? I mean, is it 10 million or is it 1 million or where are we at?
I'm unaware of any cost estimates at this point.
Okay.
Alan?
Yeah, this is the first time I've looked at this. I really don't have anything intelligent to say on it, except I was wondering what the bike gutter was.
That is so people can go up and down with their bicycles, and you don't have to go thump, 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 thump up the stairs. You put the bike in the gutter, and you walk up the stairs with the bike next to
You
it.
walk it, okay. I
Yeah,
got
so
it.
yeah, it's not for riding.
Yeah, I was thinking it sounds like suicide.
Now that's the ramp for the kids around the corner that that's for.
You know, Alan, one of your alternatives on the fisherman's diocese here was adamantly opposed to this concept, was actually, disgusted with the whole situation, I should say. And, being that you represent that same organization, I mean, is that something that you've talked about as a fisherman's organization whatsoever?
No, it would just be the personal opinion. Who was it? Was it Joe or
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, it's Joe.
I was just going to say that for your comment.
So anyway, I think that the one thing that, as I looked at this thing, I looked at it and I said, gosh, this looks nice. But the more and more I think about it, and the more and more that I've actually analyzed it, and the more and more that I've, hear about, we're supposed to design a working waterfront. We have a waterfront master plan, and now we have a centennial plan. It just seems like, we're getting involved with all these plans, and I don't know if they all coincide. And really, what do we want Morro Bay to look like? Is this what we want Morro Bay to look like? And that's the real key that I would like to maybe address a little bit more. Is this really what we want the citizens of Morro Bay and the visitors of Morro Bay to see when they look at this? So anyway, Lynn?
Well, I agree with Jean that I love the pictures. It looks great. I think it would enhance the waterfront for the tourists as a tourist attraction. But I also wonder about the other plans that we have and where we should be putting our money. Would this be the first project to be done, the third project to be done someplace? How much are we going to spend on it before we even decide if it could be brought to fruition? So I'm thinking that maybe we have other infrastructure that might be more important at the time.
One of the things that I also discussed and has been brought up is the tie-in between downtown and the Embarcadero. I mean, that was what this whole, I think, project was supposed to do, and I think they've taken that to a certain extent, but really they haven't really tied in the downtown to the Embarcadero, as more so as once you get to the Embarcadero, it's all improved and enhanced. So maybe the first approach would be, and I'm just throwing this out, is actually close traffic from Market Street all the way down to Dorns and create a pedestrian type of flow into the Embarcadero area. I mean, I don't see that. I mean, this was what the whole concept was, is the flow of traffic from downtown to the Embarcadero. And if we had the money, if people would pay for this, I think that enhancing it would be good, but frankly, I think it's a pipe dream. And I think, as Lynn said, do we want to spend more and more consulting's money doing something like this? So, I don't know. Neil?
I agree with the comments from each of you so far in a certain way. I think it's important to tie the downtown into the Embarcadero. And like you said, I don't know if this goes far enough. Aside from a ballpark figure, knowing that how much this is going to cost, if I knew that approving or saying yes to this meant that it put the, for example, just to pick a random project that's been going on, but the haul-out facility, if this pushed the haul-out facility back in funding, I would probably have to weigh those things out. Importance-wise, you know, if this will tie in to downtown more so, especially if you make no parking on Embarcadero in this area, and it makes one-way traffic. For example, if I wanted to take my boat from the launch ramp back through town, now I'll have to take a quick right, go up through the neighborhood, and re-navigate through town. So to just look at it in this really microscopic view, I don't think makes sense, but you know, there's going to be reimagining a traffic flow through the town, and the surrounding streets that parallel Embarcadero and go up and down are going to become affected by traffic if you change this. And maybe that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying, you know, I think that it needs to just be looked at. What would the impacts be? I'm not saying boats can't turn right, you know, on the first street, but you know, that needs to be taken into effect, that boats, all those haul out, or all the boats that come from the launch ramp now are going to have to take a different route maybe than they would have in the past. And just me personally, it's more anecdotal, but every time I drive by there, it's not like I'm having to stop at just above this stairway by Dorns here. It's not like I'm having to stop for pedestrians crossing. It's usually a pretty quick drive through that area. It's not necessarily at this point, in my opinion, a high traffic area. So I understand the need to tie it together, but just, you know, sprucing up that one corner, you know, whether we shut down that street and make it a walkway, or which would affect those businesses that are there right now, or, you know, do something else to encourage traffic. I think that would be dependent on where all these cars that used to come, you know, a lot of our visitors come and they park on the Embarcadero and then they walk from there. I don't know if there's no parking down here, then yeah, maybe there would be more need for access from the street up here. That's Market, right? So I'm not necessarily prepared. I don't know if I don't think I'm prepared to say yes to move forward. I do like the idea of this. Once the kind of east side of the project, the Centennial Park, and sprucing that up, but then once you designate what's currently parking for businesses right there, and then you turn it into a plaza, I already have a concern with, I know we're wanting to serve our tourists who come to town and locals as well, but that's a lot of square footage to give up to essentially, I mean, I don't know, to milling around. I mean, it's great to have a nice observation. You're coming, you get to see the ocean. It's a great view corridor, but are we making up with that somewhere else? And I would hate to just look at it as in just this project right here without seeing more of a master plan of what we want the Embarcadero to look like with the waterfront. And I like the idea of extending docks. I was down there today looking at this, what it is now, and really it's an underutilized area of the waterfront right there where this dock comes out. And there's no slips. All those little boats are pretty much non-existent right now. So that would be a massive improvement right there. So I think that's a great concept. I just, if you have all those boats, how do they get to them? Because if this one on the left gets developed and say a plant gets put and that's either a hotel or stores or whatever, but there's no parking and you just have that walkway, you've got a lot of boat owners right there with zero access to their boat. Or not zero, I guess. On the other side there's a driveway, but again, those are just my 2 cents.
Dana?
Thank you. the number one question I should move forward with this, and that was kind of my same concerns that everybody's been bringing up, and especially costs. It's like, where is this going to come from and what have you. But if you can throw up, Eric, if you can throw up this plan back up there. So the lease sites on the water are looking to improve, and where the parking lot is now that's a possible development, and up above it where D'Estasio's is, where they're showing in perspective A. So from what I can tell, they're looking at these developments paying for a lot of this. The perspectives, you look at perspective A, it looks way bigger than it really is. This is not that big a space. So when I look down at the plan of this, I really like the plan as far as the terraces, the different seating areas as you come down. It would work really well for people that are on the upper street to be able to look down on the waterfront. If you're in a wheelchair or handicap, you're able to look all the way through to the water from up above. So I think the key to tying the waterfront to the upper part of the city is parking. If you're parked up here, then you're going to walk all through all of this. If you go to any other big tourist town, you walk. That's what you do. So I think, and if there's a big parking lot here, then that's going to help all the businesses and tenants and everybody else that's on the waterfront. But I kind of like it. I think it's pretty nice. I was at the first workshop, and then the meeting that we had with the consultant. I was there also. For some reason, the fire pits, they always get me, and I think that's excessive. I don't know. Maybe that's something that happens. I guess it'd be nice, but I just see gas pipes going somewhere and then flames coming out. I'm like, really? Okay. So, yeah, that's market up here. This could be, they could be doing diagonal parking on half of that street. It's a big, wide street. It's not really, like you said, there's not a lot going on up there. And so if you have parking up above, then people are going to be using that whole area. You have your tie-in between the upper and the lower.
So again, we can talk about what we like, what we don't like, or whatever, but I think that what the City Council is really looking toward us for is this something we want to move forward as a Plaza concept? I mean, is this something that we feel the city should move forward with right now? I mean, given the fact we got a wastewater treatment plant, it's going to cost in excess of $130 million. We've got all these infrastructure projects. Is this something that we should be spending our time on and our money?
Just want to add a few clarifying points. This is just a concept.
Correct.
It's not a plan that is currently looking to be funded and the city's moving forward on. It's looking at lots of economic and development and increased access and improvements across the city, and this isn't the only location. This being a prime location that we own a lot of real estate. We own the whole corridor through here. We own D'Estasio's. We own the parking lot behind it. We own the parking lot before it. All underdeveloped, underutilized, old infrastructure that's due for redevelopment. So the city's looking at that as first blush. What do we want to do here, city? And this is the idea of moving forward with that. As you mentioned, Dana, on the perspective A, off to the right, that white building, that building doesn't exist. That's kind of where D'Estasio's and the stairs are more or less now. And that is a future potential development with the city's going to be looking at that whole parking lot below on the Embarcadero, D'Estasio's and the parking lot behind as another potential for development opportunity that we may be looking outside to the greater developer world to see if somebody wants to come in and redevelop that. Cost to do this, I don't see a ton of it. I mean, obviously there's parts on one side of the road versus the other if you talk about title and trust funding. I'm sure that our department's going to have some skin in the game, but this is years down the road. The main way that a lot of these type projects get developed is through developer fees and projects that are occurring nearby. I was talking to one of my leaseholders the other day on the waterfront, remain nameless, but they paid into the roundabout as part of the city's cost of putting that. So when people are processing their projects, they end up having to foot the bills for doing these types of projects. And the off-the-hook RFP process that we're getting ready to jump back into is one potential for a developer for that project to tie into this and potentially pay into that. The Destacios, when that all gets done, there's another big potential for somebody to tie in and do this. So that's really where the funding typically comes for these types of projects. It's not, okay, we're going to do this and let's start funding for it next year. Sure, if we could identify some grants or other funding that would be potential, that would be great. But it's typically from developments nearby that get, when they get processed, they get put in their permit conditions and negotiate, helping develop these things for the city. On parking, as you know, we're also looking at this promenade concept on the waterfront. And again, it's another concept that's doesn't have any big financial analysis done on it yet. Obviously, there's going to be a cost to doing that. Who bears that cost is yet to be seen, and how it all works out. If and when that process does happen, we're taking away a certain amount of parking, the city's going to be looking up the streets and up Market on the next street behind to potentially, like Dana says, you take a big wide Market Street in certain areas and you restripe it and redo it, kind of like we did just over here on Surf Street with putting in the diagonal parking. There's a lot of opportunity, as you saw when we did the Boatyard RM concept, where they came in and looked at all that parking as a modern eye. There's ways to get parking more creative and more efficient to gain more parking out of the same space you have today. So all those things would be looked at to regain parking. And then again, the promenade is another potential concept where other developments and other leases could potentially tie into those and help develop those from a cost standpoint.
So what I'm hearing from you is that really what we're here to do and tasked is just, as a pipe dream, if we feel it's a good idea to change the character and the look of the Centennial area right now.
Yeah, Centennial is this a concept, and obviously, if it moves forward, I'm sure things are going to change even more from what this is.
Okay.
But is this a concept that we think we should pursue as a city?
Okay.
Would it take right now away from potential funding for the boatyard that we're looking at? Like I said, this is going to be years down the line when this happens. So how it gets funded is yet to be seen. But like I said, it typically comes from the things I spoke about earlier.
Neil?
So just bear with me for a second, because this is all conceptual, and you just brought up the boatyard. Also, I know I did too, but just as I look at this, because I'd never thought about giving up these road ends for any other use than for parking. But now if we're talking about putting some kind of corridor, would that space right there between those two lease sites be wide enough for a potential boat lift? And then where the Centennial Park currently is, could you turn and go into that lot and turn that lot that we might have a parking garage and make that our haul out facility, and then give the city parking to the triangle lot?
Wow, there's a rabbit hole I didn't think we were going down tonight.
I'm just saying, if I didn't say it at this point, I know it's crazy.
I'd like to comment on that. We went to the World's Fair up in Vancouver a number of years ago, and they were building a wooden boat out there. And they had a line probably a mile long of people wanting to drive a trundle into that thing. There used to be a boatyard in front of Gunther's there were people lined up along the fence watching people work on their boat. It's a great interaction between the waterfront, working waterfront, and people.
I know it sounds crazy and it's like out of left field, but we're talking also tonight about working waterfront, and I'm just saying this is central. This is like the middle of our waterfront, and you could, if it was feasible, we're talking conceptual. So right now I'm just saying, yeah, I could as easily say, yeah, look at this concept, but I would also, for the ad hoc committee for the haul out, I'd say, you maybe visit this, because I just don't know if anybody ever thought about this for any other use here than what it currently is as parking. I surely had never thought about these park ends, and just as I sit here and look at it,
I think that you'd be hard pressed to try to get that project approved. Or
well, if the city owns the land and the city owns a triangle lot.
well,
I mean,
city owns the
city-
triangle lot. And
You know, the city, I mean, you could build a much bigger parking structure there, or just pave it and put lines in and charge parking there, just like you would a parking garage.
Well, it's an interesting concept, and we can go off on all sorts of different tangents. Let's get back
Okay.
to Alan.
Okay, answer.
Just one thing, the boatyard, whatever nuisance it would be more of a nuisance there to the surrounding homes and businesses.
Right.
Yeah, the triangle lot's kind of out of the way, largely.
No, I agree. Neil, it's a great point, and we, as Gene said, we used to have the boat haul out and the yard right there next to Sun and Buns, and I wasn't around at the time, so I didn't see the people, but when I used to go down to Avila, which is where I used to go in the 60s and 70s, people always watched them work on their boats down there. So given that, I would like to at least put a vote forward on should we move forward with the Plaza concept. Just a simple yes or no. Given the parameters that there's no funding for it, it is a conceptual plan, but or should it just be left as is for the foreseeable future and not waste our time or any energy on it? So I would like to make a motion to either approve the Plaza concept or disapprove the Plaza concept. Do I hear a second?
I think you're going to have to,
make a motion.
you have to make a motion to either approve it or make a motion to not approve it.
Yeah, and that's the vote.
Oh, I see.
I think
Okay. All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Plaza concept as described here in our agenda. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Dana?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what you were saying. This is a planning tool. This is just for the future, just to kind of get an idea of some consistency in one area of development. So that's what we're looking at. We're not looking to sign off on anything. I think everybody's made that clear.
Gene?
And if we vote yes, then we are approving of an amphitheater in that area, basically.
A Plaza concept. And then we have, on number 2, we have comments to make any changes to that conceptual plan.
Okay.
So,
yeah, so correct. So
Yeah.
the first part of it, and we'll maybe handle this in 2 parts. 1A, yes, move forward with the Plaza concept, or don't move forward with it. And yes, as generally outlined here, but number 2, okay, what are your comments, specific comments on that Plaza concept that we're working with?
So yes, I definitely feel that there's some changes that could be made. The changes that I see in front of me, I do have some serious concerns about them. So I just like to take this one thing at a time. So any other discussion on the motion on the table? Alan?
I do have one question. The one-way, two-way, no-way hasn't been decided yet?
No, that's number 3.
Yes, and that's conceptual as well,
Yeah.
so.
Lynn? Neil? Okay, so we have a motion on the table to vote yes to move forward with the Plaza concept. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nope.
Okay, so...
One no is Neil.
One no, Neil. And so the motion passes to move forward with the Plaza concept. So as we go into, do you have any comments to the Plaza concept as presented? Which, as we do move forward, if the city does get funding through development fees, what would you like to see changed in the conceptual plans we see before us? Gene?
I see kind of Morro Bay as hands-on, human scale type of development. And I hate to see it large scale, spread out too much. I like things that are see, feel, and touch. They're, within a hand's distance or an arm's distance, and human scale, basically. And I feel as though the amphitheater, as proposed, is probably too broad in concept. I'd like to see more interaction with human beings on things. More in and outs, that sort of thing.
Alan? And then, so these comments that you'll be taking down and presenting these changes that we feel to the city council?
Well,
I mean, how do we want to work this?
Yeah, and so what I was thinking through as Gene was speaking, how we want to handle these. I mean, I prefer that if we could get, if there's a particular element, such as Gene brought up, or some of the other things you bring up, if we could get consensus from the entire board on that element or not, and then otherwise there's going to be 37 different comments that that aren't going to. What we're trying to get is the board's voice, not an individual voice.
I understand. Okay, I understand on that. And so let's just go down the list here, Alan.
Well, right off the bat, I want to ask Gene to elaborate on what he just said, because I don't really understand it.
Do you know the drawing with Michelangelo where you see the arms up and the arms down in the circle of?
Oh, yeah.
That's basically a human scale. Things that you can reach up and touch, things like in and out. In the proposal in the rendering of number A here, it's wide open. I don't see anything that's any shade structure, no wind structure, something that defines a close environment for somebody, a grouping of some area there. It's all big and spread out and open. And I'd like to see more grouping structures. Does that make any sense to you guys?
So it seems more intimate, like there's more spaces where you can go out with smaller groups and have your
Correctly.
space.
Yes.
Okay, I see what you mean. It looks like a university plaza. Is what
Yes,
it looks
there you
like.
go.
Was the amphitheater design and the stage, I mean, when you build that, I assume there's some concept for some kind of performance or meetings or something there. Is there some grander scheme that's been discussed, or is it just open
No.
to?
I think they just came up with this concept. And, frankly, if you look at the Mission Plaza in San Luis Obispo, that's so much underutilized too. And I think Gene is absolutely right. I think that the amphitheater, I personally don't like it. I think it's too open. I don't think it has the feel of Morro Bay, and I think it should be scaled down. It should be softened, should be, landscaped more, and just more intimate. That's my feeling.
I believe the intent is it does have a small stage in there for potential performance type things, and that's why it's got
Right.
the shape. So yeah, it
No,
does
I
have
understand,
that
but
purpose.
I'm just not so sure that that's a good place for it. The wind, you go down there, I mean, it's nasty, and you can't stop that. You don't have any wind barriers or anything like that. I mean, we were down there on 4th of July, me and Becca. We had our canopies flying all over the place. There's no way to stop it. Dana?
Well, again, I think this looks bigger than it really is, but if you look at the aerial view of this, you will see the seating for the so-called amphitheater. I don't really, I see why people are calling it an amphitheater because it's round. It's coming off of a circle, but there's as much green space as there is seating space. There's big planters, there's elevated areas. There's a slide, there's a walkway over here. All the way to the left towards Dorn's, that doesn't look the same as what's on this the plan next to it. As you look at the perspective, you see all these stairs next to Dorn's, and then you look at the aerial drawing, and it just looks like a staircase going up. It doesn't look like this. So I don't know if that was a change that didn't get finished on the perspective part. Where these people are sitting, that begins an area where there's a bunch of vegetation that you can see on the plan perspective. And it looks like there's a whole bunch of chessboards, seating, and stuff around some vegetation. So depending on how big that is, that's kind of adds to the articulation of what's going on here. Of course, the chessboard itself is Morro Bay character right there. I think this is not that big a space, once again.
Well, you brought up a good point here. The artist rendering on the right on this document that we have, and then the aerial viewpoint is completely different.
Yeah, they don't match it.
They don't match it at all.
I was looking at the option A, the black and white ones we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And it matches, at least that staircase in the grassy rounded half-quarter circle thing there matches the color rendition. It's the same, looking like a 2-lane stairway going up and down. This other one on the right looks like about an 8-lane stairway.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right, that doesn't.
So, I mean, I like the
match.
aerial viewpoint because it lends itself not being so concrete. And then they don't have, on the aerial viewpoint, they don't even have the stairway on the right-hand side. I don't even see it. Is it there?
It's next to the slide.
Next to the slide.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of greenery, and then they have an elevator over here because they're looking at, the possibility of a building being right there. And then there's a lot of different seating.
So it's just a different, I mean.
I think so, yeah. I think this is what was the improvement from all the discussions, but this may have been the original perspective.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that if we as a board, I think that the whole Centennial Amphitheater concept should be softened and maybe looking a little bit more like the aerial that's on the left here, whatever that is. You see that, Gene?
Yeah, I have a question. On
Yeah.
the perspective, on the right-hand side, there's kind of a square box
Yeah.
with something, I'm just trying to, does anybody know what that is?
No.
Well, yeah, see, that's not in this. If it is, it's rounded, and it's not as flat as that is showing.
It's that round thing.
Yeah, it's a radius right there with chairs above it, and they have a railing.
Yeah.
So that'd be like outdoor seating for some restaurant that might be up there. Obviously, this is going to be in whoever develops, they're going to change, do whatever, something's along these lines maybe, but not exact.
Conceptual, I understand.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say about the amphitheater question, since that's the topic we're talking about, when we had this meeting last time with the planning commission, one of the planning commissioners said something like, I don't know why they'd want an amphitheater. There's never a concert. And I thought, what? They have them at Harbor Festival. They have them at the Margarita Avocado Festival. They have them in the caged parking lot. It's kind of funny looking, but they have the chain link fence around it, and everybody's crammed in there. So I mean, we do have concerts down there on the Embarcadero. So this would be a much nicer area for something like that. People could, they've had them down at Tidelands Park. Personally, I think it's better over here because you're in the middle of a neighborhood down there. But whatever. That's my comments.
So as we move forward here, one of the things that I'm hearing is the grand scale that we're seeing here in perspective A does not tie into the aerial viewpoint that we have here, Eric, and that understanding that it is conceptually, but maybe just soften it a little bit or not making it so concrete-y, I guess is the word. I don't know. What would be the word, Gene, you use? Yeah. But anyway, that would be one change. So as a group here, would that be something that anyone would like to make a motion on the amphitheater type of concept? Dana?
Well, I would just say I like the plan better than I like the perspective. If the perspective could be given, I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm counting steps, and then I look over here and I see 2 steps, and over here I see 8 steps
Right.
going up the hill, that are 20 or 30 feet long. So it's kind of apples and oranges that we're looking at.
I'd say the overhead, the plan view is probably the accurate to scale view.
Yeah, like I said, I like that much better than the perspective.
So Eric, is there a perspective that corresponds with the aerial view, or that just didn't get put into our agenda? Or
No, well, it'd be like, if I could refer back to that black and white one, I think, let me look at those, because there were some perspective, or so I'm looking a couple pages into your agenda. You've got the perspective views pre-revision. No, it doesn't have page numbers on it. You'll start seeing the graphics. And it looks like the color perspective that we're considering right now looks largely the same as the black and white version. They did some changes. They removed some pergola-looking things up on the top and changed the building a little bit. You on the same page with me?
Well, we're kind of trying to get there, sir.
Yeah, it was back up the hill. This thing will try to read.
Keep flipping through, get past all the verbiage, all the little bullet points, pages and pages of bullet points, then you start getting to, you'll get the concept A and concept B of the first ones in black and white, then some other overhead and existing photos, and then you'll get...
Aren't those basically from our meeting with the planning department and the city? That's all the same.
Yes, those are the ones from the joint meeting.
Right.
Exact same ones. So
Right.
It looks to me like the perspective view from that meeting, which you have in black and white in your staff report, got transferred straight across as being the same one that we have in color we're looking at today, with a couple of minor changes. But from a scale standpoint, it looks pretty identical to me.
But you see, I don't have a black and white one. At least I don't. Do you? Yeah. Ours are all in color, Eric. I mean, I'm just telling you, we don't have a black and white one.
Then you've got color. Mine are black and white.
Okay, well, I'm still confused a bit, but that's okay.
Let me look at your stuff.
I mean, there is no page numbers. See, they're all going through all the verbiage. I don't have any.
That's it. You've got printed one.
So it's right after page 26 in ours.
That's what's now over here.
They just got rid of that over.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be there. Okay, so how do you want to handle it, folks, here? I mean,
You were asking for a specific motion.
well, I mean, we should be giving something to the city council. I mean, I don't know how we want
They
to
want
approach it. We already,
Feedback, right?
yeah, they want feedback, but Eric doesn't seem to want to go after 50 suggestions.
Right.
So
I'll go
maybe
after
we
50 suggestions. I'm trying to
get a
try and keep it efficient so that
Right.
I can have something concrete to move forward with.
right,
Again, I'm looking for a board perspective.
right,
If we have one.
right.
Good. I have some other comments. I just don't want to muddy them with this. If we're staying specific on just, you were asking or talking about specifically the amphitheater idea.
You know, you comments are well versed. Come on, more comments.
So, if this is the amphitheater design, and as you get out towards the end, there's a sand pit with a rock feature and fireplace, which feels a lot more beachy on the water side. But if we're trying to, as people are say, walking down Morro Bay Boulevard, and then they walk down this amphitheater, up here there's all this greenery, which greenery is all nice, but the archery landscape around here is like it's either the ice plant or the grass that's over by the dunes. It might be nice to have more of a beach feel as you walk. Artificial turf so people can sit. That's what was going to be my question is, I assume we're not going to maintain a lawn there, but I'm just saying, other towns use palm trees to let people know they're close to the water. We might think of some way of not necessarily saying palm trees, but just, incorporating something. You're close to the ocean, the landscape should maybe mirror that. So again, I didn't know if those comments were for this period of time or not.
Landscaping is good. I think that the utilization of landscaping could really make or break a project such as this. I mean, I went to Harmony the other day. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Harmony. It's a quaint little town, and they're remodeling the whole thing. Now it's just one owner. But the thing that I felt when I was there is that they haven't remodeled the inside yet, but the whole outside, all the hardscapes and the landscapes is redone. But it still retains that charming feel. And that's what I'd like to see with this project here. Gene.
If you look at the rendering number A, and I realize that there's been changes there, but if you eliminate all the people, and then you just see the landscape there, it looks to me like it's barren.
It does.
It doesn't feel to me like Morro Bay.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's and all concrete. And I realize that, you look at the plan view, there's the greenery, but your comment, it looks like a university plaza. That's what it looks like. And I just don't feel Morro Bay here. I know that the consultants are asking us to tell them what Morro Bay looks like, but
Right.
That's your job.
Here's the thing that I want to, I would say, and I shouldn't even say this, but I would tend to imagine that a lot of people that work for RRM went to Cal Poly, since it's such a great architectural school. If you go to the University of Union at Cal Poly, this is what this is.
I agree.
No. You've been to University of Union's Cal Poly, right?
Thanks. Do you know where the courthouse is? The building
Yeah.
complex, cat a corner from there. That's what this thing looks like. It just doesn't look like there's no feeling, no touching, it's all concrete and stucco. I mean, I
agree.
We would be the stuckies.
So, given that, any other comments?
I'm going to take a stab at trying to, go ahead, Alan.
No, you go ahead.
No, Alan, do you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think it was a good idea you come down Morro Bay Boulevard. I remember the first time I came to town. You drive down, you come to the end of Morro Bay Boulevard, and you go, now what? You turn left or right, and there was no
Continuity.
there was no invitation to just get out of your car there that I could see. But I think it works if you have a way to get out of your car up here, and I'm wondering how much traffic, what percentage of the total Embarcadero traffic they expect to walk down through here. And I mean, I'm not making a judgment. I'm just curious if they're interested in getting people to leave their cars up here at the top of the hill, or possibly have transit from somewhere else, because then it works for me. Otherwise, maybe not.
Okay, Gene.
When you go down Morro Bay Boulevard and you come to the dead end down there, I wonder how much traffic really shows up down there. I realize if you look at the statement up in the front here, the whole idea was the Morro Bay Centennial Parkway project aims to connect the Embarcadero activities to Morro Bay Boulevard downtown by utilizing the interconnecting system of open space and things like that. But this plan really doesn't address it. It doesn't, and Alan is correct. When you come down the end of that street, you need to have a parking structure there. You need to have a parking lot. You need to have something or other, or a park or something up there to say, okay, this is the beginning of getting down on the Embarcadero.
I agree. So, two things. This is too stark. One. Two, there's not a connectivity between downtown and the Embarcadero still. There's still really not a connectivity, I don't see or feel. Neil?
And when I voted no on this, on the last point,
Yeah.
it wasn't
the only one that did, but
right.
that's okay.
But when the point of, I didn't like that it said for the foreseeable future, because I wouldn't say that I would never want to approve something like this. It was just, I would like to see how it fit in with what maybe the intentions were up the hill coming in, or more of kind of like a master plan idea, not just as this microscopic view. It doesn't make as much sense to me as to what maybe, thinking of Alan's perspective, as the first time I remember driving down Morro Bay Boulevard, assuming I was going to get to the water and getting there and being like, wait, what do I do? Where did I go? And there's no direction. There's no, and if I'm local now, so I know I turn right on Main Street. I go up and make a left on Beach if that's the way I want to go to the Rock, or, whatever. But I know that. But if you're coming to this town and, you're not on your phone using navigation, you're just looking, it's not like the inviting corridor straight down. So, maybe in the last plan where they had that amphitheater looking, or that big structure up there, was to show people down the road, like kind of like waving their hand, hey, come down this way. Not that people, necessarily need that, but when you get to the end of the road, because you can't see down into the amphitheater, I assume, from your car, but if there was something up above that kind of, brought you down in, assumption. But my point is just that, maybe if, I don't know. I don't think it's doing enough, maybe in this small microscopic view, to tie into the rest of downtown.
Gene?
If Morro Bay Boulevard continued on down to the Embarcadero, that would be a whole different scenario.
Lynn?
Listening to this whole conversation and looking at the perspective, I don't think we really want to vote for this amphitheater or perspective A. That this is, number one, it is not to the scale of the aerial view, and it's not doing what the consensus is here on the board.
I agree. I mean, we're missing something, Eric, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, but this artist rendering doesn't make any sense.
I agree. It
Okay.
seems out of scale. Can
Yeah.
I put in a couple points to try and get some direction here? I think here's the sort of the consensus I seem to be hearing is we want something smaller scale, more intimate, less concrete, and just big open concrete space, which appears to be what's in the perspective, but maybe not matching in the overhead. In terms of less open space and less concrete and more intimate, do you have any suggestions physically what that means? What do you want to touch, Gene?
I don't see any wood there. No wood at all. I mean, wood, see, feel, and touch. I mean, that's something that you can deal with. I mentioned that when we had our joint meeting before. I see no heavy timber structures, nothing that says Morro Bay is part of a waterfront. This plaza could be in Santa Fe, for as far as I can see, or LA or Anaheim. It doesn't say Morro Bay.
Dana?
I think we want to see more up above how that's going to connect as a possibility. But the first thing is the perspective is not what we're looking at over here. So that's kind of a problem. I like what Gene's saying. The wood's definitely a much warmer feel. And it is Morro Bay. It is waterfront. Everything on the waterfront's built out of big timbers.
Lynn?
I think looking at the aerial perspective, I think in a way it's too busy. It's too cut up into the smaller spaces. If you look at all of the paving or the concrete and the concentric circles, there are probably too many elements in that space that if it would have to be in a much larger space, or you have to scale it down to the size that it actually is.
So really, I think one of the consensus items is smaller scale, utilizing different types of materials that is more of a Morro Bay feel as opposed to concrete, which is put anywhere, everywhere. Alan?
You don't have to raise your hand.
I have a suggestion. If something like this, it would reappear. We're having a hard time because we're not getting an oblique view. If we could get a view from like 45 degrees down on this, it would answer a lot of these questions and give us a better idea of what we're looking at.
And maybe from Morro Bay Boulevard, like what it looks like, the entrance from the connectivity of the city?
Well, and then I think that the connectivity from Morro Bay Boulevard, I don't think it's being accomplished. So those are three distinct, I think, consensus that most of the board members have expressed. So how could we, is there anything else, Neil?
In regards to landscaping, Morro Bay Boulevard has a pretty unique, I mean, when you're on Morro Bay Boulevard, with the trees that line it, but if there's some way to start maybe incorporating the landscaping down Morro Bay Boulevard to connect and flow through all the way down to the water, so you have like a natural path.
I think
going
that
down.
is eventually the plan. I
Okay.
mean, most of that property the city doesn't own.
Right.
So it's going to take working with those property owners and come up again with a concept or a vision of how are we going to do that? What sort of features do we want to do? And then start talking to the landowners and seeing what can be accomplished. Mm-hmm. So, Bill, back to your three: better connectivity, knowing that the part from once you hit Market Street and head on up, that concept hasn't been visioned out yet, and we don't have the graphics or anything for that, but at some point it will go there. So until that's done, you're not going to get great connectivity from the top of this up MBB, but do something more than what's here now to try and get that connectivity more established, number one. Number two, I'm still back to, I guess, less open, less concrete, more intimate would be number two. And Morro Bay material, Morro Bay feel, is that number three? Did I get those right?
I mean, this is a Pismo Beach drawing. Would go well with Pismo Beach. I mean, seriously. And if that's what we want our city to look like, then so be it. But I don't think that the citizens want to, and frankly, as a board, I would not want any part of it.
So can I go a little further and say if we could achieve the connectivity, make it more intimate, less open, more touchy-feely, get the Morro Bay materials, the Morro Bay feel, the Morro Bay look to it, move forward with that type of plaza?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I definitely think that taking out that roundabout, the cars there, that's a no-brainer. I mean, those are things that need to get done, that can get done. But, I'm a firm, pardon me? Oh. I'm a firm believer that, unless there's someone that can give us all this money to do this, when you're born, you crawl, then you walk, and then you can run. And so, seriously, let's do these things in steps. But I think it needs to be a little smaller scale, personally. Gene?
My final comment is, this is just one part of the Embarcadero.
Yeah.
And if we need to have a large space, that's fine. But let's try to keep human scale everywhere else. And we may need to have a gathering spot, but let's try to keep it for Morro Bayans.
Neil?
Is lighting addressed in this? I mean, I know our town goes to bed pretty early, but
I don't see any lights.
yeah, the idea of, kind of lighting attraction. I know we've got quite a bit of lighting in Morro Bay, but
Well, no, I mean, actually, there's lighting.
sorry,
in
I was
this.
gonna
There's some stuff in the materials from the joint meeting.
no, got it.
Yeah,
I
the
would assume
existing has,
A lot of this lighting is built into things
Yeah.
now. You just don't see light poles as much. So anything else? So I got those 3 items. I think that's good. So thumbs up on the plaza concept in general. Here's the 3 things we want to see if this plaza concept moves forward, which is good, which all covers item.
And, you know,
One
you
and
you also have the comments from the professor that was sent to you. Do you?
Correct.
And I'd like to put those in to the notes. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
that's a-
Ron, maybe
that's
I
a-
shouldn't say that.
That's a good point. If you'll indulge me, maybe you want to just run through those real quick?
Yeah.
So Ron believes, yes, we should move forward with it. If it's practical in terms of functionality, regulation, economic feasibility, appears to be wishful thinking, doesn't identify a realistic funding source, very much what you've already said, other than would-be private real estate developers, perhaps do the physical improvements. Do you have any comments on the plaza concept? The see-through panel on the pier, he pretty much shot down, said that isn't going to work because it's going to get scratched up. Not point even doing that. And it's going to be a slip and fall hazard. All materials used must be highly durable, resistant to salt environment, be as maintenance free as possible. And traffic flow, his preference was one way, provided it takes into consideration other functions, widen sidewalk, vehicle parking, loading and unloading zones, delivery zones, through traffic lane, those sorts of things. So that was Ron's basic input on it.
So with those 3 elements, do we want to put a motion, Eric, or is there any other major concerns
Do
that
we,
we want to address?
do we need to talk about the water side?
Well, yeah.
Or is that
I actually like the water side to a certain extent. I mean,
Well, that's a good point. So I think,
Yeah.
and thanks, Bill. So those 3 main elements, I don't necessarily need a motion and a vote. I think we've got consensus with lots of different angles that this got brought from.
Okay.
I think I've got enough to go on there with those 3 major points. So that's really from the east side of Embarcadero. Now we move to the street end corridor through there and out to the pier.
I mean, first look, I actually like it. I think it's a better utilization. And the added slips, I mean, if God willing, they're able to even do that. I mean, as from what I understand, to build a slip is an act of God, but
And I don't think the slips are seriously part of
then why are they
the
there?
overall concept. I think the pier, and they just added those slips on there to show the connectivity, and that would, because those are really going to be in control of the 2 lease sites on either side and what they propose.
I see.
It's
Okay.
not going to be the city pursuing this as a concept. I think those were just, I'd call them placeholders if nothing else.
the city plan would go all the way out the dock?
Yeah, the city plan, basically, you carry the color on out through the corridor, out through the water, and that's the city. The rest is all in private lease sites.
Now, Gene, are they able to do something like that?
Are they able to do what?
Go out in that bay on dock there on the east side?
Maybe not this year, but in following years, depending on what happens with eelgrass. And
Yeah, I mean, just like any engineering project, you throw enough money at it, and eventually it will happen.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that the eelgrass issue will work itself out in the future. I was trying to get a scale on the public pier that's sticking out, and it looks like it'll be probably 50 feet, or probably 70, 75 feet beyond the store control line, which would be like another 25 feet beyond where the city lease sites are right now. And that's pretty close to the channel, which is out there. But I think it's right on the edge of the navigable channel. It will create some navigable problems, but I think it's not unsurmountable.
So when this concept first came forward through the RM process, they did come to me and ask that, where's the channel? And I told them, so you're right, you've got the shore control lines about the top of the revetment, the lease sites go out 50 feet, the nav channel is another 50 feet beyond that, And I think they were tailoring this pier for something like 75 feet off the shore. So they're aware of that channel line. And when projects like you've worked on with the slips coming through on these different ones, my general concern when the slips start pushing out is we don't want to push right against the channel line. I usually want at least an 8 or 10 foot setback from the channel line, because boats are going to stick out and you need a little bit of room. So we are, and RM is aware that we're not going to stick right up to the edge of the nav channel.
Okay. What's the boardwalk running along there? Is that the pedestrian walkway that's shown? It looks like a walkway for the slips, but
Floating boardwalk.
But on one of the plans, I noticed that it was listed as the the public walkway along the outside of the businesses. Yeah.
That's what it says right
Yeah, Harbor Walk. And I'm curious, does it go up and down to the water, and do the people that are doing the Harbor Walk, are they walking right past the bows of the boats there? Or?
So the Harbor Walk, as you know, generally is tied to the lease site land portion and on the back sides of the buildings. This just looks to me like an attempt to conceptually put it down on the water, because this looks all water level. I don't think this goes up and down. That has been put on a couple of our lease sites where the Harbor Walk wasn't feasible to do, most notably GAFCO, Harbor Hut, and Morro Bay Landing. That head float there is now publicly available for people to walk down there, because they can't practically build the Harbor Walk, even though you've got on the land side. It's on the inland side of the building. So in that portion through there in the Measure D zone, at least those spots, it's been put down on the water. So far, anywhere else on the waterfront, the Harbor Walk element is still being required in these leases, and when people are wanting to put slips in, Coastal Commission's been conditioning those slips with public accessibility down to those slips, but it's not in lieu of the Harbor Walk above. So I'm not entirely certain what, like I said, with the slips there and those white boats, I would call that more of a placeholder and concept that was just thrown in there as a general idea. I wouldn't think that should the leaseholders on either side redevelop, they would be putting the Harbor Walk as it is elevated behind their buildings, and that would satisfy that portion. It wouldn't have to be down in the water. So it puzzles me a little bit why they threw that down there, because the city, while those are lease sites and we have control, we don't have absolute control over those at the time until it's time to renegotiate leases.
Gene?
In our joint meeting before, I tried to explain to the consultants that the floating harbor walk will not work underneath the pier at high tide. So.
So there needs to be some more thought on that. But overall, any other comments on this rendering here? I mean, I think it's an improvement. I mean, it's conceptual. Dana?
Yeah, just between the two lease sites, obviously that's public, should be access for people to get down to the water, and either have, like right now what it is a tie-up, a 3-hour tie-up, is it?
Yeah, 3 hour.
Yeah. And so I know it gets used a lot. You got people out on the mooring fields that use them, and just random recreational boaters quite a bit use those all the time to tie up to. Go up, get something to eat, come back down, get in your boat and go.
So keep the transient public.
I would hate to see that go away, since
Yeah.
we already have that. I think that would not be a good thing.
Okay. About the fire pits.
I don't have one way or other. I mean, fire pits, I don't know.
Can I have one
Neil?
comment left on the tie-up you were just talking about? So if the three, on either side of that pier, those are just conceptual where those boats are, there's not planned slips, right? So
Right.
could you just have on either side of those just 2 ramps that went down on both sides, and just had, because I mean that's going to be a pretty long pier sticking out, and just have, somewhat of a kind of floating dock that rises and falls with the tide right there, and has a ramp, on both sides. Like there, right now on the rendering, on the north side, there's a ramp that goes down, and you could just continue that straight and then have a side tie along the pier.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, kind of like how your boats are, but instead of having fingers stick out, just have side tie right there.
That'd be one way to make that back up.
Right. And if you needed to do it on both sides, you could, but it wouldn't necessarily. If that dock is as long as, Gene's saying that it is, you might be able to get along with just one straight and not lose any square footage. Yeah, just right here. Doing one here and one here.
Yeah.
A ramp and a ramp.
Okay.
And then maybe I like the idea of the little porthole at the end, and it might be cool to take those all the way back to where the water starts. Kids would be interested to, if there was one like every 5 feet or something like that. They don't have to be huge, but just, like it looked like the window of a boat or something. I don't know.
I think the problem that we've addressed on that, Neil, is the practicality of them. In other words, trying to clean them, trying to even see out of them after a period of time is almost impossible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and Ron's comment was
Lean?
any kind of plastic is going to quickly deteriorate. If you use glass, unless it's very, very small, it gets wet, and now you've got a pretty serious slip hazard.
The little restaurant down in Port San Luis has those, and they're probably, 8-10 inches,
Yeah.
8
That's what I was
inches in
thinking.
diameter, and they're fascinating and they're beautiful.
They're awesome.
They're in the floor of a restaurant,
Indoor.
indoors.
So when you're
Start walking,
sitting,
if you get
you see
gravel
it?
on there and you walk on it, all of a sudden it isn't beautiful anymore.
There is an
So
ocean
those
to the
still
left and
work
right.
there at Old Port Inn?
Yeah, no, it's not Old Port Inn, it's that other little restaurant, this side of, before, I don't know what.
Chris Doran's running that now. I don't know the name of it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's a make or breaker. There is the ocean surrounding the pier. So.
Okay, so do we have any other discussions on the west side over there?
Just one thing is bothering me with the idea of the tie-up and the pier. And is there going to be recreational fishing off the pier? Is that envisioned, or is that specifically out? Because, that's going to come up.
I think that's quite far down the line.
Is there a state law in California that you have to allow fishing on a pier? It seems
We
to
don't, on the docks, at our 3-hour docks down there, we don't allow, although people tend to. If there's no boat there, we try not to allow fishing on those just because it's for boat use, not for fishing use.
Right. Okay. Just thought I'd mention.
Yeah.
So can't get anything on the fire pits on you guys.
I like the fire pits, and I think that that's going to be a hot spot for watching sunset. So out on that pier, I think there should be some benches.
Hot spot.
And smoking oysters.
Yeah.
So benches, okay. All right, so any other comments to Eric that is a little bit of a consensus from the board here? I don't hear really too much dissatisfaction with that side.
No, I got the make sure you maintain 3-hour, transient boat availability tie-up, whether it's one way or the other, that can be arranged. It looks like there's plenty of room for both. And a gangway going there. Potential, keep the porthole idea if we can lose the trip and slip and fall issues, if that's possible. Maybe some benches out on the pier, fire pit's okay.
Does anybody like the idea of those kind of old school binoculars? You pump a quarter in and you can see the seals out on the dock there. The viewing.
Neil?
We don't have that. Hey, we're giving comments.
All right, that'd be Morro Bay.
I'm sure it would make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, I bet people are shocked we don't have that, right? Every little ocean town you have has one. The city collects the funds. The
Harbor Department collects the funds. We want binoculars, coin-operated binoculars.
Geo had one.
Tell us.
put a
Who
credit
did?
card on it.
Geo DeGarmore had one, and then I think there's one at
Oh, he does?
behind House of Juju, I believe, got one.
They collect the money? Do you get a piece of it?
I don't know if that's on our reporting or not.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
are we done there?
Yeah.
And how about one-way, two-way?
I like one-way, as long as it's designed properly. And I think one of the things that Ron really brought up, which I think is real important, is that the stakeholders, the biggest stakeholders, are the people that are right there, and they should have probably even more of a say than us. But I don't have a real problem with the one-way. If we're going to extend the sidewalk, I think you have to have one-way, personally. You're not going to, that's the whole extent. One of the extents of this is to extend the sidewalks for the tourists. So, that's my feeling.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, but one-way seems inconvenient enough that if you've gone that far, you might as well go to no way.
Well, that's that is also something that can be done after the one-way.
And my other concept is, somebody mentioned in the comments that they should have a temporary bollards to put up to try this out and see how it works. I think it would be more interesting to do it for 6 months or something, and
Good point.
just to see how the traffic works, and whether people can adapt or not. And try one way, try no way, two ways already going.
Gene?
I would be concerned about the upland street owners along those streets there. They really aren't meant to take a whole lot of traffic. I know they're not artery streets, so I was just concerned how that would affect things up there.
Well, I think that one of Alan's, comments, which I think is a valid comment, is try it for a 6-month to a year period. I mean, down there in Rio Grande, they tried cutting off the freeway access for 6 months to study it, to see what kind of impact it would do before they made a final decision. So that could be something that we should do, which would really give us an indication, and do it in the busy summer months and the slow months, so that we get a, yeah, there is no slow months anymore, right? So, Neil, what are your thoughts? You work down there.
Yeah, I think of all the issues, this is the the most important one, and I would want probably the most public comment on this, because a lot of the businesses that are there, that have been there for decades, have built their business around the current traffic pattern and how cars park and where they move and how people come about the city. And I'm not saying that turning something one way isn't a bad idea, but I think that some studies would need to be done. And back to the idea of looking at this in a grander scheme, to talk about the entire Embarcadero as one way based on this small piece of a plan. I understand the idea to start talking about it, but the orientation, do you drive people towards the rock or away from the rock? And where do they get off the ride once they're in the one-way street? And I think it's an interesting concept. I just think it's a large item probably to separate out on its own, separate from Centennial Park.
Which it is. I mean, here, yes, we've brought it together. It's why we're just really looking at it primarily at the Centennial, and then the parking is another issue with one-way, two-way, and what are your main inputs on it. But RRM also consultant working on that project while they tie them together. Obviously, where they come together at Centennial, they're looking at that as a separate project in and of itself. That'll, if we go down that path, obviously, we're going to have to look at traffic and parking and other impacts a lot more seriously.
Right, 'cause Alan, to your point of trying something for 6 months, if you don't have stake in that area, just say that it might be easy, but when it's your livelihood, and I know you didn't, that's how you meant it, but I mean,
I heard what you said. I agree.
to just try it, it could, you would want some public, you would need a lot of buy-in, I think, for an experiment such as that to take place.
Well, I mean, you've had stakeholder meetings, Eric. What is the consensus of people that are down there right now?
It's mixed. I hear adamant arguments on both sides of it. Some people love the idea and think we should have done it 10 years ago. Some people say, heck no, that's just going to destroy my business. Trial may be one way to test it, see what it really does.
I notice a lot of older people, me included, enjoy driving on the Embarcadero. I see them every day, and I drive the Embarcadero both ways 4 or 5 times a day sometimes. But I see a lot of older folks, that's part of their routine. And these are Morro Bay people who, they'll go out to the Rock, and then they'll drive along the Embarcadero out to the boat launch, and then they turn around and then go back uphill. And that's just part of their life here. So.
Well, you have a very valid point, and I don't want to age myself too again. One of my routines now has been going to Bayside Cafe on Thursdays, getting a burrito, going to the Rock, and eating it with my wife, and then we drive on the Embarcadero down to the cell shop, make a left-hand turn, and go home. My point being is that, what is my point? You're right. I mean, a lot of people do drive the Embarcadero, and it would be a challenge, but, change is inevitable to a certain extent. Neil?
Eric, has there been any discussion or thought process in the direction in the orientation, or is there a preferred thought process that if you drop people off away from the Rock, they're going to want to walk towards it, or, vice versa?
Well, now, let me step back. This one-way is only for a very small section. Is that correct? I mean, I didn't get that this whole Embarcadero is going to be one way.
No, it'd be Harbor to Marina, so it'd be where you come down next to Fiona Blue, the gallery there, and House of Juju across the street to Marina, which is down Shell Shop, Marina Square neighborhood. Yeah.
So it's just a very small part.
So yeah, once you go south, still two-way to the launch ramp.
That's a long part of the park.
Harbor to Marina. But a comment to that could be, well, don't make it Harbor to Marina, make it Harbor to Pacific or something, shorten it.
To be honest with you, I don't have a lot of knowledge to make a decision one way or the other. I really don't. I mean, I think Alan's viewpoint to a certain extent is I'd like to see people get out of their cars. I mean, I know that the older people and stuff do it here in Morro Bay, but I think we tend to take parking. People, if you look at people, they want to park the closest that they can to any place. And unless you're handicapped, I don't get it personally. But that's just my personal opinion. I mean, if you're going to a tourist town, and if this is primarily for the tourist, and that's the thing, is this for the tourists or is this for the Morro Bay people?
Both.
Yeah, true. But I don't have a lot of knowledge whether one or two or no way what would be the best thing, to be honest with you.
I mean, you can still widen the western half of the sidewalk and still do two-way.
You can.
I think you'll end up losing more parking because you're probably going to have to take it from the eastern side now to keep the two-way traffic flowing. I haven't studied the full width, and I don't know what the lane requirements are, but it seems to me if you do the promenade on the west side and still try and retain two-way parking, you're maybe not. Maybe there's enough room to just take the parking on the west side and keep it two-lane and keep the parking.
I just think if you're going to widen that western pedestrian sidewalk area, you have to go one way. That either or. I mean, if you don't do that, then two. Yeah.
There's parking on both sides now. So
I understand.
and
It's two.
two-way. So you take away half the parking, and you still have two-way, but you have half the parking.
That's created a bigger sidewalk.
And then Eric's saying you could also get rid of the sidewalk on the east side, correct?
Well, you keep the sidewalk.
So I'm looking at same staff report that had the one from the joint meeting, and RM's got several parking layouts with a 50-foot wide Embarcadero. One rendering has, and this is starting from Oceanside to west side to east, 10-foot sidewalk, 9-foot parking and deliveries, 11-foot travel lane, 11-foot travel lane, 9-foot sidewalk. So it's maintain two-way traffic. Got the widened Embarcadero sidewalk and a widened eastern side of the sidewalk, and you still maintain two-way. Another version, one-way, has a 12-foot sidewalk, 9-foot deliveries and parking, and I think parking probably just means drop-off type parking, loading zone. 12-foot travel lane, that's a one-way, and then a bike lane, and then a 9-foot sidewalk on the east side. So it looks like you can maintain two-way travel, get a wider sidewalk.
With a 10-foot sidewalk as opposed to a 12-foot.
Yeah, 12 or 15.
And still keep parking on one side.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that seems like a good first step.
Two-lane, two-way. I don't have a problem with that.
See if you can keep it two-way, widen the sidewalk, but keep the two-way.
Yeah. Any discussion on that? Two-way, Dana? One way or the other?
Well, yeah, we were just kind of thinking that, that'd be a good spot for paid parking with new meters that you have that, some people, locals could have a parking pass that use that area to park in a lot. But it seems eventually we have to do that somewhere along the line.
Do what?
Paid parking.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that, isn't this proposal doesn't talk about paid parking, does it? No. Okay.
No.
But I think that's definitely, I would like to include that metered parking, whatever route we go. At least that's my feeling.
So
What's anyone's else comment on metered parking down there in the Embarcadero? Gene, your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I was looking at the
Oh,
screen.
metered parking. If, whatever route we go, I mean,
I don't really care.
yeah. Okay.
So do we have any consensus, one-way, two-way?
Well, I kind of think that we're kind of leaning toward more two-way.
Okay.
Am I right in that assumption right now to start with? But I think there's
Two-way, so maybe you're not going to get quite as wide a sidewalks and
Right.
promenade to maintain two-way.
at least to start, and I think that really, as Neil said, really needs more of a study to figure out what is the best approach on this. I'm not so sure just taking it as a one-way, two-way, we really know the ramifications.
So two-way, and Ron was one-way, but he also said take into account these other issues, loading, unloading zones, truck delivery zones, through traffic lane. So would you want those consensus to take other things besides just the traffic flow into consideration? Deliveries, obviously, that's a pretty significant issue. So make sure we deal with delivery and loading zones.
Definitely.
Okay.
Neil?
Yeah, you also have hotels down there that have customers that need to get to their hotel.
Right.
And I know some of them, like Anderson, has hotel. They have parking underneath, but I don't know if they have parking for every one of the rooms or not, or some kind of, concept of that. And if we take parking away completely and just do one way, then, right now I know the employees for various businesses do park there, and it's that they need to park there. But if they are displaced and if the parking garage is built and that can handle that, great. But otherwise, the streets that we're also talking about turning other traffic up there are also going to need to start housing parking as they get displaced up into.
And that's what I brought up earlier. I think if the city moves forward in any kind of a sidewalk widening promenade type effort, we're going to be looking at sort of what we did at the Triangle lot with RM and redoing parking to make the most efficient use of the space where we've got it.
Gene?
Yeah, kind of little history on the delivery. For years, there has always been concepts of, well, we'll have them deliver trucks just before 10 o'clock in the morning. But historically, it's always been, well, the truck is coming over from the valley, and when he gets here, he gets here. I don't know whether that's changed or not. Neil, you have things delivered?
Yeah, and I deliver, and we show up when we show up. You
Yeah.
know, things change on the road, and we get deliveries all hours of the day. So most of my stuff comes after 3. So.
One of the comments I fairly commonly hear from our leaseholders is Morro Bay tends to be at the end of the delivery priority cycle to San Luis and Paso and those other places, and so they get and they have delivery times that you can and can't do in San Luis. So those type places that have the bigger demographic and the bigger accounts, I think, get the preference on when the trucks show up, and then we kind of get the leftovers, and they show up here whenever they show up here, and that could be early in the morning, it could be in the afternoon, it could be in the middle of the day, depending on the truck and who they are and what they're delivering.
So I think the consensus is probably start off with two-way. Make sure we take in consideration the loading and unloading for hotel passengers and stuff. But since we're getting so many hotel rooms down there, we got to make sure that the patrons have access. Because like Estero Inn, I don't believe they have any parking, do they, Dana?
Yeah, they do. And then he also, somehow he also has 2 parking spots in front of his place only for his hotel.
Okay. Gene?
Back on the original proposals in front of us, on page 30, I think it's 37, maybe 38, it shows a 50-foot Embarcadero. On the west side, it shows a 10-foot sidewalk, and then there's a 9-foot parking delivery area. Then a travel lane, 11-foot, another 11-foot travel lane, and a 9-foot sidewalk on the eastern side. So that 9-foot delivery parking area there could be just for deliveries, and that would open up the feeling of the Embarcadero, just for delivery on that side, that area there.
And if you look above the little white square that has those measurements and look at the plan view, the overhead view, you can see some cars in what look like normal permanent-ish parking places, but then you see a hashed out loading zone where there's a truck. So I think it serves a dual purpose. You retain some of the parking there. You maintain two-way travel. You lose some of the parking on the west side to loading zones and bulb outs to gain some extra space, and to the widened sidewalk, and you lose the parking on the east side of the road completely. Under that concept to maintain two-way travel.
Well, you're losing parking on the east side too, aren't
Yes.
you?
Yes.
With one way.
Yes.
Okay, so I think two-way is probably a better deal
Okay.
right now.
And then if we went down the one-way path and maybe down the two-way path, we haven't really discussed it, but if the city were to go down the one-way path, I guess one of the consensus seems to be here, do a pilot program first with it.
Right.
Would we want to do the same thing with two-way? Because you are going to lose some parking.
Well, no, I think there already is two-way, so.
But
Well,
with the two-way,
I-
if we pursue two-way and widen sidewalks, we still get back to losing some parking spaces.
I think getting rid of parking, you're going to want to, anything you do down there, I think it should be pilot program. There's going to be an impact,
You
and we
can't-
probably can't calculate it right
You
now.
can't take away parking unless you have an alternate place, or the businesses really are going to suffer.
Okay.
So, I mean,
And
you
then-
have to postpone that until you had the parking somewhere else.
With the drawing that Gene was just looking at, the 50-foot wide, this shows parking on the west side. Was there any thought, I mean, just asking if was there a thought process on east versus west side of the road? Is it better to have the cars parked on the bigger sidewalk side versus having the parking on the other side?
Yeah, I don't know. Good question. Good point.
If we want the water side to seem more open and flowing,
Yeah.
But then I know every time somebody parks on the other side, they're going to get out of their car and just walk across the road
Yeah.
and be slowing down traffic. So,
Yeah.
but I
I
don't.
think whatever way it should be done on a pilot type of basis to see. So,
I had one comment overall that I didn't think that the one-way bike lane was going to work because bikers don't want to have to go up the hill and down again, you know. They're going to find some other way to get around.
okay, any other comments on this? I think we're going to maybe conclude this discussion, unless anyone else have anything else to say. Eric, do you think you have enough information to
Yeah,
present to City Council?
I think I got enough to go on.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is our goals and objectives, which recommendations on the 2017-2018 goals and objectives for City Council consideration. So Eric, could you go over what the city wants us to do? And
Yeah, and I queue up another presentation here. I thought that last time was going to be the quick and easy one. So this one, hopefully we can get through it. There's a lot to go through here. So as you know, last year we held a strategic planning meeting and set some of our own Harbor Advisory Board goals and priorities. And then come springtime, the City Council will start its own goals and objective setting process, and for the first time really pulled in the advisory boards and bodies in an attempt to steer work plans toward the advisory boards and bodies. We had several meetings with joint council meetings and several separate meetings, went through and developed work plans, brought back to the Harbor Advisory Board for input, and then we brought back to the council, and the council adopted its 16-17 goals and objectives, which we've been working off of and are currently working off of today. I think the smoothest way to tackle this, and how I laid it out here in this presentation, is we'll start with the 6 goals and priorities that you, the Harbor Advisory Board, set back in October, and we had 9 total elements. Remember, there were some ties. We scored everything on a weighted basis, and we came up with some ties on some. So there's actually 9 items, but 5 or 6 actual goals or objectives. So what I think we do is start with those, get your input on those. We'll get some quick status report on where we are, next steps, potential next steps, and recommendations on where I think you ought to go with it. And then look at, do we want to not change it and continue to pursue it? In other words, leave it as is and keep pursuing it. Do we want to continue to pursue it but maybe make some changes, course changes? Do we want to drop it altogether? Do we want to add new items? And then when we're done, do we want to reprioritize it and put it in a priority order because it was in a priority order to begin with? Then we'll go after our Harbor Advisory Board work plan elements, which was the stuff that we went back and forth with the council and the Harbor Advisory Board, and try and tackle those in a similar manner, and then we'll go to the overall council goals and objectives. So the intent here is we're not restricted to purely harbor things. This is an opportunity that if you've got ideas or things that you think should be their council goal, which is a pretty big lofty element, probably more so an objective we'd be looking at. Any other objectives you think the city council could pursue? It could be something in North Morro Bay up on Main Street. It doesn't have to be harbor oriented. So with that, I'm going to go through these one by one.
I have a question.
Yep. Bill?
Aren't we, as a Harbor Advisory Board, we're just kind of concerned with harbor issues, though?
Primarily, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll get through that. If you've got other things and you think the water tank on Elena Street should be pink instead of green, we can tackle those. But I don't suspect we're really going to want to go there, but we'll see. And we'll see how far we get. Okay. This could take a while. So I think we'll go through these one by one. So again, these are our Harbor Advisory Board goals that we pulled out of that study session, or that we call a strategic planning session, and came up with those 9 items. I think I'd like to go through those first, and probably one at a time, get consensus on them and where to move with them, and out of those will likely come recommendations towards the city council on each of those items, and we'll handle them one at a time and see where we get. So the number one item on that list was the boatyard haul out, continue pursuing next steps. As we heard earlier, work's underway and continuing. We're working on an RFQ. Financial feasibility study was authorized and funded. We put a halt on it while we pursued Mr. Simons's potential proposal. We've discontinued engagement with that, and we're working on an RFQ. We've got a pretty good one going, hoping to get to City Council to have them approved to issue it sometime in January, probably the second meeting in January. So that's where we are on that. So we'll issue the RFQ. Assuming the council says, yes, go with this, we'll issue the RFQ. Hopefully we get some interested parties back that say they're interested in potentially developing this. If they're viable responses, then we'll consider issuing an RFP, which is a request for proposals, which is an actual proposal to build the thing. I'd recommend you retain it as a goal. As you know, the council goal objective now is contract for complete and bring to council a financial feasibility study. Well, RFQ is in a way a financial feasibility study in itself, in that if you get prospective entities or people forward saying, yes, I want to do this, they've done their financial, hopefully, work and seen that it's maybe something that's financially viable that they want to pursue. So I would recommend retaining as a goal. If there's any objectives we want to adopt, consider adopting those, and recommend the council keep it on as a goal objective and a Harbor Advisory Board work plan goal objective.
I agree. I concur. Anyone else have any other issues? I think this is this was our number one goal when we had our session, and I still think it should be our number one goal. I mean, one of the things that I would really like to accomplish is, setting goals is one good thing, but hopefully we can accomplish some goals. If we don't accomplish any goals, then what's the point? And I'm, in some respects, we sit up here and we talk and talk and talk, but, so hopefully we can actually accomplish some of these things. And I think we are, and we're making a difference. So I'd like to continue with that one.
So can I add on, and I'm trying to vision this forward and carry this forward and help guide you and vice versa carry this forward. I would see objectives being future objectives, both to continue working on now and to feed into the next goal setting, so we will, and maybe I should have put this in the front, advisory boards and bodies are to be doing this in December and maybe into early January. Then we'll start feeding it into the City Council's goal setting process, and we'll be doing the council goal study sessions, and these will get adopted in March, April. So on this particular item, we will be looking at recommending some objectives that we'll pursue that aren't going to get onto the goals until later. So on some of these, we're a little cart before the horse because they're underway goals and objectives, but just understand that we'll feed this into the council process as that council process evolves. So I would see this objective, this item being, yes, I'm assuming you want to keep it as number one, although we can look at that towards the end. Objectives being God, too many acronyms, RFQ it, continue with an RFQ process and see what the results are. Depending on results, either RFP it or financial feasibility study. If we get no viable responses back from the RFQ, that nothing really out there seems anybody's fired up or really looking like they're willing and able to do it, then we consider financial feasibility, which could spell the death knell for it, or it could spell something more positive to continue pursuing.
If you went to the financial feasibility, then are we talking about the city undertaking the project?
Well, I think if we were to, let's say, we get nothing from the RFQ, so we don't issue an RFP, we do a financial feasibility. The financial feasibility looks positive. Obviously, it looks negative and says it's all going to be in the red by millions of dollars a year. You don't do it. If financial feasibility spells a positive outlook, then I would anticipate that if the city continues to pursue this, that we would look at issuing an RFP for the build of it if the financial feasibility spelled itself out. Because by that being done, that the RFQ didn't attract anybody. You're now issuing an RFP, and then people can bid on that. So yeah, we would be building the thing. That makes sense? Okay. So boatyard, keep going. So recommend, and I'm going to look for consensus here, north-south nods or east-west nods. Consensus to recommend to council RFQ, RFP, financial feasibility, and then follow-on steps, however those three things guide us. Okay? That's too easy. Hopefully they all go this way. Eelgrass, that was number 2. Form an ad hoc committee to address eelgrass mitigation banking management. We've done that. So far, a fair amount of research and information gathering has been done by Lynn and her crew. Next steps would be continue research, identify regulatory paths forward for a Morro Bay specific plan for regulatory approval. I think considering hiring consultancy is going to be a necessary next step. My recommendation would be to retain this as a goal and expand the ad hoc committee membership to other key participants and stakeholders, and maybe even consider taking more of a task force approach and hiring professional consultancy to assist and guide and steer this kind of process. We've run into an eelgrass block wall at Rose's Landing, at the Harbor Center. We're seeing it at a couple other sites where people are trying to develop slips and they're running into this eelgrass, and the eelgrass mitigation plan is just letting them go nowhere. And it's turned into a revolving door because it takes so long to get through permitting. If any eelgrass shows up and grows in the time you design it from the start, and then 6 months to a year later, you're trying to get permit approvals and the eelgrass has changed, now you got to change your plan. And then you go through the whole loop again, and you come back, and then the eelgrass changes again, and you got to change your plan again, and there's just no end to it. And it's become an unknown for our lessees that is getting to the point where they're throwing up their hands, and it's just the risk is too much for them to go into. So it's becoming, as we foresaw quite a while ago, an issue. The current council goal objective is consider pursuing changes to eelgrass regulation and mitigation Morro Bay to the benefit of the resource and community. I think that's still a decent goal objective. I would probably recommend adding on objectives of advisory board recommend the council pursue more of a task force approach, which is, I guess, a way to explain it, less of a volunteer-based process and more of a hired gun process, where you're bringing in hired experts to help you out on it. So I think if we're going to make significant progress on this, I think we're going to have to hire some professional consultancy that's done this and help steer us through this. So I think a carry-on objective would be keep the objective we have now, which is consider pursuing changes to the regulation, but hire a consultancy to help and consider a task force approach.
So be it.
North-south nods?
Yeah. I definitely think it's become a major issue, as you probably well know more than myself. One of the leaseholders that wanted to put slips in, I talked to him the other day, he gave up and he's going to try to, again, go to hotel concept, hotels on top and restaurant on the bottom. I mean, just to try to generate some revenue, whether or not it makes any sense or not, he's just trying to figure it out. Just can't do it.
And one logical, and this is getting probably a little too far along, but an eelgrass mitigation bank that said leaseholders can buy into one time and be done, it may be the best way to deal with this in the long term. So that may be where it ends up going. So, all right, so I'm good on that one. Any other input on that?
No.
And I think when we get to the end, then we can maybe reprioritize. Number 3 was dredging, ensure regular core dredging of the harbor and continue pursuing the State Park Marina. As I spoke to you earlier, the Corps is about ready to get here with their project and to start dredging. They've got funding identified for keeping the Aquina coming year after year. Once we get this dredging done, we'll be good for another 5, 6, 7 years for the rest of the channel. So we'll see what happens in the new presidential organization and how the Corps is funded. It appears to be that this president is going to carry forward a lot of public infrastructure projects. So I would suspect the Corps of Engineers is going to be very well funded, knock on wood, in coming years, but we'll see how that all works out. And then State Park Marina, again, the regulatory hurdle of disposal of those dredge materials is just haven't found a clear and certain financial and regulatory path forward for that. We thought piggybacking onto the course project would work. Big financial unknown of if we could even pass the testing, and then the cost of that testing. So that put us a pretty serious pause for concern to try and carry that forward to piggyback onto this course project. So we didn't move forward with that any further this summer and this fall. Next steps, obviously, continue support of the Corps and going to Washington, D.C. every year and doing what we've been doing, and then continue pursuing regulatory approvals for the State Park Marina. I'm recommending you retain it as a goal. It's not currently a council goal objective. Recommend consider adopting a goal objective for the State Park Marina, and recommend to the council adopt it as one of the council's goal objectives and get it on the Harbor Advisory Board work plan. So that's up to you guys to discuss and see how, if you'd like to approach that.
Well, one of the things that, again, I have a list of goals that I wanted to try to accomplish here on the Harbor Board, and I've chatted with Eric about this. One of the things is that, we talk about revenue, and a pet peeve of mine is to take over the management of the Back Bay Marina right now from in conjunction, immediately, and in conjunction with trying to see if we can dredge the Back Bay Marina. But it will allow us the opportunity until our lease is up in 2023, I believe it is, to collect all that revenue. And even if we cannot accomplish the dredging concept because of the cost and regulatory issues, I think we can maintain the revenue base and generate some extra money to try to see if we can mitigate it. We have come close. The EPA is even, as Eric has told me, has come close to agreeing with us a little bit, but it's going to cost us $178,000 to see if it would work. So I would like to keep this as a goal, but to expand it and have the city council adopt it, and that we actually take over the Back Bay Marina leases. Just the leases from right now. I don't know if I said a mouthful, but.
Would that be a separate goal?
I guess. That I think is, one of the things with revenue enhancements.
Yeah, okay.
Within just a lease change, we would generate an extra $300,000.
Sure.
Simple as that. Now, the ramifications, as I've always said, is this something we really want to pursue? And it's just my thought. Now, you have a lot of knowledge. Is this something that we should do as a Harbor Advisory Board? With this, I think that we can do just as good a job as AP, if not better, hopefully. And if AP needs to do some work, we would hire him, contract out to them to do it too, So that's my thoughts. Dana, what's your thoughts on that? You live back there, right?
Years ago, I lived in that marina. Well, I think there's a lot of costs involved, and you have to kind of take that into account. I don't know exactly how well it pencils out. I previously thought that we should wait until the second phase is taken care of, since they're the people that would be doing it, before we made any decision like this. But I don't know. It's not looking as promising now for the dredging there, but maybe it will be. Maybe there'll be some, like you say, the conversation's getting better, and EPA might allow things if they're still around. So I don't know. I think it's worth pursuing if you want to make it another goal.
I would. I think it's something that revenue enhancement, and it does pencil out. I think we pencil it out in the office, and I think it's going to add revenue to Morro Bay, to the Harbor Department.
Anybody else?
I think that getting the Back Bay Marina dredge should be a top priority.
Okay. And I see, and I probably should have put this in my preamble, it's in a later slide, but I'm going to foresee probably two goal lists evolving out of this. One is going to be the Harbor Advisory Board goal list, the one that we come up with, that we'll start with our 9. We may pull some off of the council goal list and put them on the HAB list that we jointly developed last year. And then we'll make recommendations to the city council, and the city council's going to say, let's say we have 10. The city council may say, yes, pursue these as work plans 1 through 5, but 6 through 10 not. So, but they're still going to be on our list. So 1 through 5 are going to get my priority and your priority and the stuff that we aim to you to get them done. And then the 6 through 10 will be sort of second shrift, sitting on the side, working on as time allows. That make sense?
Yeah, and as the city is going to recognize only the list that of those objectives, the ones that they put on. Excuse me.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Our primary job is going to be working on the council adopted goal and objective list as it pertains to the Harbor Advisory Board, and the stuff that both Dave put on there is important to them, that involves Harbor and Harbor Advisory Board, and the things that we feed them and they agree with and we keep on, and they put on, I should say. Those will be the primary things we work on.
Am I correct? Is there something that we feel is important, but the council does not feel is important, that we're not supposed to be looking at?
Correct.
Is that what they're saying?
Yeah.
There could be.
That's exactly what they're saying. Yeah. And see, that's one of the problems. I mean, we still made recommendations here as a Harbor Advisory Board. City Council doesn't need to take them up, and they won't even look at them. And that's the disconnect, so that the work plan that is generated by the City Council, and there's opportunities for the public to go to those meetings, but you're absolutely right. There is a disconnect there. If we're working on something that they don't have as one of their goals, we're not going to get their ears very, very often.
So it sounds like pursue State Park Marina dredging is a recommended goal objective.
Correct.
Council goal objective. I'm not sure which goal it will fit under. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now, which of the 10 city council goals we have. But we'll figure that out later. So continue to pursue. In addition to consider city managing the entirety of the State Park Marina?
Economic development, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if that needs to be presented to City Council, though, Eric. I mean, you know, we've talked about this. I mean, this might be just a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's up to you. I mean, I just as soon not get City Council involved in it if we don't have to.
As part of our enterprise fund,
Yeah,
let them keep their hands off of it.
that's exactly right. Well, the other issue, too, is that, and this is an issue, the Back Bay Marina is not part of the enterprise fund. And
No,
so that's the other question mark.
Okay, but definitely recommend continuing to pursue the State Park Marina dredging.
Correct, yeah.
Yep.
I think it's very important.
Okay, because it's not currently a goal objective. Okay. Next, 4A. This is one of the multiple ones. I think this 4 had 3 different elements. Marine research facility, support establishment of marine research facility in Morro Bay, including Central Coast Aquarium proposal. Current status, at least on the aquarium, the city is supporting and assisting Central Coast Aquarium on their proposal to take over that lease site in 2018. They're in the middle of securing a $20 million loan from the USDA right now. Originally, they pursued a $10 million loan, but apparently their USDA wants to give them $20 million for all the planning and permitting and everything up front as well, so they should be getting going on that pretty soon. The original plan was for them to come back the end of this year. It's looking like it's going to be more January, February for them to come back, but sounds like they definitely are coming back. For consent to landowner approval, where they'll bring a little more robust design to the table and have definite funding that they're moving forward on. And current council goal objective is to work closely with the council, with the Central Coastal Aquarium to bring that concept plan for approval to the council and coastal commission. I would see that plan swinging through the Harbor Advisory Board as well at some point. So that would be my recommendation, to retain it as a goal and keep it on as an objective, goal objective, and the Harbor Advisory Board review that, which is currently on the work plan as it is.
Yeah.
Any other marine research facility pursuance we want to try and do? Because that was...
My question is on the aquarium, would it go through the Harbor Advisory Board first before it went to Planning Commission? Or after council, or where do we stand in this thing?
I would say it would likely, they're going to have, by the time they get funding secured, I'm assuming they're going to fairly robustly know what the building size, scale, layout, uses, stuff will be, and how much space they're going to use. I would think that general concept is what we bring to the Harbor Advisory Board for input on those different elements. And then, because you're not a planning commission and dealing with zoning, all that stuff, and just throw the general element stuff at them, and they can take that into consideration, and then that gets fed to the planning commission. Okay, so keep the aquarium. I mean, so that, at least at this point, that appears to be our primary Morro Bay Marine Research Facilities is via that Morro Bay Aquarium, and Cal Poly's involvement with it and everything they're going to be doing. So keep as objective and support, and swing it through HAB when it comes time. Okay. For B, support Harbor Enterprise goals, support LEAP, which was the economic stimulus plan that we were working on a couple of years ago. Support LEAP and other economic development efforts. Status of that is, I think that goal is really being pursued on several different fronts, from the downtown and waterfront strategic plan, in our working waterfront efforts, the Morro Bay Aquarium, the Maritime Museum, the boatyard. Those are all economic development type stuff that we as a board and as a city are pursuing and have input to. So I think next steps are continue on those efforts on those same issues. Recommend to keep it and keep up those current efforts. Further on in my recommendation here is, I'm not sure if this needs to be a Harbor Advisory Board separate goal objective, because you're doing that via other things. It's just a thought. Yes, no? Time to go home? I'm not certain if we need to keep this specific goal as a Harbor Advisory Board goal, because we are supporting the aquarium effort, we're supporting the working waterfront effort, we're supporting the Maritime Museum, supporting the boatyard. Not the Maritime Museum so much with the Harbor Advisory Board, but
We've got the certain projects.
it's, I guess, yeah, that's a shorter way of saying it. Thank you, Dana. This may be a redundant goal.
So let's just take it off. Done. Take it off.
North, south, east, west.
Okay. Excuse me.
Guys are getting punch drunk.
I apologize. I'm not speaking for everyone.
Marine sanctuaries. Form an ad hoc committee to conduct research and fact-finding in order to help inform the city council in its decision-making. We've done that. A lot of research was done a year and a half, 2 years ago, and this was a lot hotter. Ad hoc committee was formed, did a lot of research, fed that in the city council. The Chumash nomination was accepted by NOAA in the meantime as a possible sanctuary designation. The Harbor Advisory Board previously recommended the council sponsor or promote additional public information forums. As you remember, we had NOAA come here and give us their spiel. Harbor Advisory Board formally recommended the city have other forums to present differing viewpoints. Those forums were never pursued. My recommendation is retain it as a goal. The ad hoc committee at this point really continue to monitor the sanctuary nomination and act accordingly. There's no current council goal objective relative to marine sanctuaries. I don't know where this nomination is going with the current administration or with the future administration of the presidency.
Well, I noticed that the Sierra Club has taken out 2 full-page ads recently, so
Correct.
something's going to happen. I would probably imagine Mr. Ex-President might even just nominate it as before he leaves office. I don't know. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
you know, you just never know.
I haven't heard much in
Maybe we should keep it on.
recent months.
Yeah,
I think we should
probably
keep the
just,
committee so they're attuned to it.
yeah.
Okay. Do we want to recommend that this be a council goal objective?
No, because it's not, and they're not going to accept
Nothing to
it.
do right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me, we asked the city, somewhere along the line, the Fishermen's Organization asked the city to support us. And I used the analogy of being our shield to protect us from some of the stuff that comes down on a hugely minority industry like ours. I envision them in past city councils, they took a stance against the sanctuary. They said, no, we don't want it. They weren't able to come to that conclusion this time. I think that the ad hoc committee has gathered a body of information and events, particularly court events, have pointed up some, irrefutable facts that make it in the city's interest to actively not support the sanctuary. And that's just my statement.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Alan, the city has not supported the sanctuary. They did not take a vote.
They didn't.
They basically, their previous vote was not to take a stance on it. If I'm not to change their stance.
Not to change this.
Correct?
So there's three actually, but 2 current, relatively modern city council resolutions in opposition to National Marine Sanctuary designation on our coast unless certain 3 caveats are met. This council, current council, made a conscious decision not to take a different stance. They didn't come up with a new resolution or a new stance against or for the Chumash Sanctuary in particular. They let the existing resolutions stand, which are against sanctuary nomination or sanctuary approval.
Okay. So we're
So
just
the
going to
shield is still sort of there.
Right. So we're going to keep the ad hoc committee and just let it flow. But it's not a council objective, and I don't, I mean, unless you want to move it on as a council objective, anyone?
But if something does come up, if this does the fires get stoked again and it comes back up, there are methods in which we can submit it to get back onto the council's objectives.
Yeah, and I would be willing to bet if this nomination began to move forward in the federal government that the council and community would start taking a very keen interest in it again, and we would be re-energized and engaged to start pursuing that stuff again. Yeah, we're not just going to sit back and watch it, I don't think. I think we're going to be active participants. Okay, so keep it on in watch mode. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, 5A, off-boat fish sales, direct to the public, continue to support, promote, and help grow off-boat fish sales. As you know, the City Council provided an allowance to conduct off-boat fish sales at public docks and piers, where previously it had really only been allowed in our slips. Next steps would be continue pursuing promotional activities as they arise. A recommendation that I've thought of is potential Do we want to consider recommending the city's new tourism manager and or deputy city manager take up promotional or growth efforts on this? There's some of it needs obviously to be industry led, the industry taking it on itself and promoting and coming up with ideas and places and people, places and things to enact this, but obviously it can be a potential city role in that as well. We've supported it, we just need something more to support if it's going to go any further.
Yeah, that was my question. How much activity has there been?
All of it has been in slips.
Nobody's using that Tidelands dock.
No one, there's been a couple, I shouldn't say none, but it's been pretty low amount. I think still if the next level of off-boat fish sales in my mind is a designated area during a designated day of the week at a designated time that anybody that drives out from Atascadero or wherever someday can go down there and know that he can buy something off of a boat.
Like they have in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or up in Pillar. You just know. And you can look, and there's certain websites that show what's listed, but if you just show up, you know you can go buy something off the boat.
Right, good point.
And it's consistent. And that's what we've been having trouble, because as you know, a lot of our fisheries are, salmon. Sometimes there's salmon here. Most of the guys are somewhere else. Albacore, same thing. Crab. I mean, I've had some good crab years, but it's a bit of a tough place to do that all the time. And it takes commitment from the fleet, from you guys, to make sure that somebody's there, because as soon as 2 or 3 weeks pass and nobody's showing up, it's dead. No one's going to go there anymore.
Gene?
Is that the area of the fish market that Great American Fish Company were proposing next to the South T Pier? I know they want to do a platform there. Is that where they're going to do a fish market also?
Their project has a fish market there. I haven't looked at it lately to see what size and scale it is, but it's a small scale, normal-ish fish market. That could be a spot that would be pretty conducive to boats, selling off boats too. You've got the gangway going down there now off of the pier, nice new dock, got a fish market, or hey, by the way, you got a boat down there you can go buy off of. So that may be a place to reinvigorate that effort. I don't know. Just a thought.
Neil?
I think that your comment about being industry-led, I think that's the most important, because we can say as much as we want, but if the fishermen, and maybe this is an opportunity for the Commercial Fishermen's Association to be, involved and maybe lead or say we want it or not, because if it's not something that the fishermen necessarily at the end of the day are, excited about or willing to try, then I don't know, keeping it a priority for ourselves. I mean, we've obviously shown support for it. We've, tried to come up with some ideas for it, but and maybe it will take commercial fishermen partnering with, private business, whether it be Great American Fish Company and a fish market they do, and then maybe we help support in marketing or, I don't know what else you could do.
If a new, invigorated, different effort were to coalesce and gel and start moving forward, I could see definitely the city continue to support and maybe lending in some more support. And like I said, maybe through the tourism manager or deputy city or tourism manager, deputy city manager, with their promotional expertise that they've brought, because they have a lot of that with them. Both those two people could potentially help the public support of whatever the industry effort becomes.
Yeah, and there's spot. I don't know I haven't seen all the plans for the project you worked on down there where Rob's got his fish house now, and then there's the loading dock, and then there's the dock side, and then our building. You kind of have this emerging fisherman, this smorgasbord of seafood that's happening, and it'd be great to possibly incorporate that somewhere on, I don't know, one of the slips that's down there or an area down there.
If it came to be that between the new GAFCO facility, like you say, Rob's place, Tognazzini's, and you, that almost always, all in walking distance, really. You can park anywhere in our parking lots, and that's all in walking distance. If you go down to your place and no, you don't have anything, but then you can walk over to Rob's, and Rob's got something. If he doesn't, you can go down to GAFCO or Togs or vice versa. Something's always there. That's a lot of fish availability, and I think maybe even tying it to a market. And this is up to the fishmongers of the world to figure out what makes sense for them financially and otherwise. I want to go buy some fish today. I'm going to go down to Tognazini's, and there's this fish case. Oh, but Alan's down there selling fresh off the boat. I want to buy that instead. And you're down there. And it becomes kind of part of the larger fish selling process as well. I don't know if that's possible.
I have a piece of information that's possibly not known yet, but the state is going to require electronic fish tickets for all ground fish. Or maybe it's not the state, maybe it's, well, the fish tickets are state fish tickets. But anyway, if you're fishing ground fish, and you're going to sell off the boat, even if you're selling as a fisherman retail, you're going to have an electronic provide an electronic fish ticket to the buyer, and I just can't see how that's going to fly for a guy selling off his boat. You know, I mean, it's going to be tough for that, for trying to sell ground fish anyway.
So currently off the boat, you still have to produce a fish ticket. It's just
it's handwritten. It's not over the internet with a computer.
But why couldn't you just do it over the internet with a computer?
Well, we're fishermen are kind of stone age.
Sorry.
That sounds too hard. I mean, there's going to be a lot of resistance to that.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people who are on the edge are going to go, what? No.
Right. So do we want to keep? Do we want or need to keep this as a goal?
But that's a reason to possibly tie in with the fish market. Is they're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely think that a fish market concept is something that should be kept, because that's, that's what Morro Bay is all about, fishing community.
So keep it as a goal.
Yeah.
And obviously, if things start to happen, we will support. And I think the city will support any industry
It may
initiative.
evolve. It hasn't yet, but it may evolve.
Okay, but
It's
not something we need to bring to council.
No, and
I don't think.
and the change that they made, the Tidelands Park thing, that's not hurting the city in any way. It's
No, not at all.
So leave that alone.
Okay. 5B, harbor cost allocation and budget. Continue to work in ensuring the cost allocation is properly accounted for costs charged versus services rendered. Status of that, the Budget Finance Ad Hoc Committee has met with the city's financial folks a few times over the last year to address several issues. Thank you, Bill. Got some rent money back. Worked on a couple other issues that were identified in the cost allocation. As I said, some allowances are provided by finance. Next steps, other than updating the cost allocation study, I don't have any next steps identified other than...
Well, we've allocated two things that we still haven't gotten an answer on. I mean, I don't want to sit here, it's late, but the legal is still, and especially in light of the article that was written a month ago in the paper about our attorney costs of $929,000. Now, that's a little misleading because it's really $33,000 a month, but that is still $33,000 a month that we pay our current law firm. The Harbor Department pays a certain percentage of that. I'm still not convinced that we're paying more than our fair share, personally. That's still my contention, because I haven't been proven elsewise, and I don't know if you would agree to that too, Neil. So, whether or not this is put on city agenda, I think myself, Neil, and Ron are still going to pursue this and try to hold you to figuring out why we're getting charged this. So anyway. And then the other thing is the restroom maintenance. That's another issue that I still have. We pay for the restrooms and we have no control over that. But we can sit here and talk all night about it. But so I'd like to leave it on as at least a harbor goal.
I would too. I would support that. And I think Bill started to illustrate the point that he could keep going. I think there's still a lot of items on there that need to get gone over by our ad hoc committee.
And my recommendation in here, which you don't have your staff report, it's in the presentation, is I think a new cost allocation study is warranted, and knowing it can cut both ways. It's 10 years old now. It was done when since a lot of city changes have been made in the governance of the city, programs and city operations. So I think I've thought it's been overdue for a long time to redo the cost allocation. Management partner's recommendation number 3 was to complete an OMB A87 compliant cost allocation plan. I don't know exactly what that is, but it's some federal spec that spells out how you deal with cost allocations. I would consider if it's important to the board, and it sounds like it is, that we consider making a recommendation to the city council to put it on as a goal objective to complete the OMB A87 compliant cost allocation study. And let's get it updated.
Yeah, I was under the impression that one was scheduled. When we first started the talk and we actually created the ad hoc committee, wasn't there one that was scheduled? They had dates that were laid out and intended to...
As you know, all the management partners' recommendations are out there on a spreadsheet for potential when we're going to bring these to council for recommendation to move forward with. The management partners, this particular recommendation, I believe, is coming up in the next budget year and on the tentative planner. So if we want to ensure that the cost allocation is fair and equitable and accurate, I think it would be good to recommend the council adopt it as a goal objective is to complete that cost allocation, and not just for the harbor, but for the other enterprises.
I agree.
As well.
I would agree and probably put it as number 1 priority when you're prioritizing.
Okay, we'll get to that at the end. So recommend the OMB compliant cost allocation study per the management partners, Dealey Bobber. To answer your 2 outstanding concerns, Bill, I think it's probably at some point in the beginning of the year a good time to go meet with the new city finance director. And while it's probably going to be brand new to him as well, it'd be a good time to bring it up with him and re-engage the city with those concerns. Okay, getting close. Measure D. Wow, going down that rabbit hole. When the city takes it back up, assist in fact-finding and decision-making process. The status is, so far, the city council has not taken it back up, or the city. I believe we are on the road to taking Measure D up through the working waterfront process. I think they naturally fit together. Next steps are continue working on the working waterfront efforts. I think my recommendation would be continue with the current working waterfront goal efforts, which we'll get to in the next step here, keeping the working waterfront as a council goal objective. And then Measure D is naturally, I think, going to come up in that process where we can continue to feed the working waterfront findings and recommendations into the general plan, local coastal plan update, and therefore better attempting to make clear the ambiguities in Measure D continue to be a function of that local coastal plan, general plan update, be the way to address Measure D. I would say consider making a Measure D goal objective. I guess the decision to make is whether, if we're going to recommend council take up Measure D, one of 2 ways of doing it. One would be making it its own goal objective for the council to pursue a clarification, update, new look at Measure D, or continuing with the current working waterfront process and meld it into that, envelop it into that, and feed it into the general plan, local coastal plan update. So there's sort
I think
of 2
the
paths
process that we discussed earlier of melding it in, Gene and Dana has met with Baker and Associates. They're putting together the working waterfront master plan, and that should be included. And it should be addressed within that body. And that's the process should be taken.
I agree. I think it makes sense to have, so they're not conflicting in the end, and have 2 simultaneous projects going on that could interfere with each other. It makes sense to do it all as one.
Anybody else? North, south, east, west? Okay. All right. And there's no current council goal objective relative to Measure D, but I think, like I say, feeding into the working waterfront process. Okay, then don't have as much stuff to put on the screen for you for these next ones just because it was going to get crazy long. So I'm going to go through the Harbor Advisory Board work plan items that we did and just do a quick run through. So these were the items that both were council objectives, that were harbor-related things that we brought to the Harbor Advisory Board for recommendation and input, and then there was other 3 or 4 items that through that process, working with the council, got added on, were the other items. So again, sort of the same methodology, keep it, continue going with it, but change it, drop it, anything new about it, and I will whip through those. So just a listing here, and I'll just read them off to you. Goal 3E was a downtown and waterfront strategic plan. That is where we are providing staff and Harbor Advisory Board input to the consultants. We're doing that with working waterfront stuff. Any other issues that have come up that are not quote-unquote working waterfront related, Michael Baker has been coming to us. If there's anything I need to bring to you, I'll bring to you. But we continue to work with them on other waterfront stuff as part of the general plan waterfront master plan update stuff. So I think my recommendation there would be keep that as a goal objective.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Well, one of the things, that should be done is that the Harbor Advisory Board, or at least some of the members, should be working with the waterfront strategic plan, and I guess you are doing that. Is that what Baker and Associates is doing? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So you're doing that right now. Okay.
Through the working waterfront.
Yeah.
Of the 2.
Okay.
One of the 2 consultants that we met with that was kind of her specialty. So it was kind of like not only the working waterfront, but also
the
that
whole
was
thing.
part of it.
Good.
It's all
Good.
coming together, which is great.
Good.
All this stuff,
Yeah.
instead of being off here and there, it's coming together.
Okay, 4D, the goal is maintain public safety services. 4D was public safety scrub of the Mormon Municipal Code, complete a review of all public safety ordinances in the Muni Code that pertain to different stuff, and recommend council changes to streamline and make them better and more effective. We had 3 work plan elements on that. This primarily hinges around the municipal code and harbor rules and regulations stuff we brought to you last year and into this year, that we got all through a bunch of different stuff. I'm still picking away at that stuff, bringing that back to you, so that's still in process. I will be bringing that back hopefully sometime this spring with a package to start looking at those again, and we'll then bring that to council for adoption. So that process is underway. My recommendation would be just keep on keeping on. North-south? Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Next one is 5A, does that look right? 5A, budget forecast. Complete a professional external 10-year budget forecast in January to March of 2017 with a new council. The city is working on that with the management partners, financial guy, Leland. We have a separate harbor budget forecast model that we've now done. You guys, committee had a look at it earlier this year. We had work plan elements of update the current capital planning needs assessment, which is something I need to sit down with Neil and Bill and you guys this winter and look at our capital list, because we're going to be feeding that into the budgeting again next year. So that's one of the work plan elements that we're working on. And then again, feed that in the 2017, 2018 budgeting process. Master fee, cost recovery, research and update the current master fee, cost recovery, estimating and modeling with the committee as well. Need to take another close look at that, although we did that a couple of years ago with the budget and then updated again last year. And then complete master fee, cost recovery with the council, with the Harbor Advisory Board and council input. And then research, investigate new and improve revenue streams. We brought that to you guys here a while ago with some ideas that we're moving. We'll see if anything will move forward with those. And bring the have revenue stream recommendations in the council budgeting process. So as we go into that budgeting process, the things we discussed previously a couple, 3 months ago, we'll feed that into the council budget process. So my recommendation would be to keep that goal objective. and keep moving with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Goal 6. What is it? 6G. 6G, the aquarium project. We talked about that. Work closely with the Central Coast Aquarium. Have review recommendations on the proposal once it's submitted. We talked about that. I'd recommend keeping going with that. It's current council goal objective, and keep it on. Yes? Okay, the next one, Maritime Museum. Update the current MOU and complete a license agreement with the Central Coast Maritime Museum. We're close to completing a Maritime Museum license agreement. That's already been approved by the city council for the city manager to approve. I'm working with the Maritime Museum folks on a final draft of that, and hopefully we'll get that done in the next month or two. They got pretty slowed down by the whole San Salvador process, because they focused all their energy on that, which was great, because that was a great event. So now we're getting back to that. So we'll have that, and then I'm starting to pick away at the MOU. So we'll continue to pick away at the MOU and bring that to the city council for their approval. So I think we got to keep that one on as well. Yep. Okay. Marine Services Facility,
Yes.
AKA Boatyard.
We talked about that.
We've
Yes.
talked about that. I don't think we need to go any further on that. Drilled down on that one, so that one's a keeper.
The fencing, that's a no-brainer, do it.
Esh fencing, yep, that one is a keep. We haven't done anything with it yet.
So,
Really?
why?
I
Drop it.
don't want them to do that.
Well, isn't that a law? Isn't that the snowy plower?
No, it's
No?
not, no.
Oh,
That was, so the dirt road going out to the creek, Embarcadero Extension, the fencing
oh
we put
yeah,
on
no, we don't want to do
on
that.
the west side, put it on the east side? So you want to say
That's
drop?
I think
That's our
so.
backup boatyard.
Yeah,
We don't want
let's
to
drop.
fence that off.
Yeah, I actually like that walk now, and that fencing's ugly.
It's-
Okay, so you're recommending drop
I
that
don't like
one?
having the, they might as well put hammer and sickle in.
Let's drop it.
Okay.
State property. do
We'll
not
recommend to drop it. Okay, goal 8C, sea otter awareness.
We did a good
We've
job on
completed
that.
it. We've done it.
Yeah.
I think it'll get, I don't know the term. It's going to get worked into our annual, I don't think it needs to be a goal next year. I think it's going to get worked into our annual MO that we're going to do every year anyhow. So I would see that it could be dropped because we're going to be doing that. So drop, I guess the recommendation I'd probably recommend making to the council is recommend drop and make that part of your everyday life.
Yep.
Sort of thing.
I agree.
What'd you say?
We're getting a little loopy here, big guy.
I'm moving as fast as I can. Goal 10C, records management. We're doing that. We're scanning files. We're going to start scanning files at some point to digitize everything, get rid of our old records, update all of our stuff. The city's hired a firm to help us with that. Not too much for the Harbor Advisory Board to do, but I think we're keeping that as a goal. Council's keeping that as a goal objective. I would recommend keeping it as well, because it's something we all need to do.
Concur.
Yeah, it's more of a current thing. And then 10H, harbor maintenance. We brought that to you a couple of months ago. We already got your input on it. I think most of the thumbs were pointed down on it, but we've already got your input on that.
Where do we stand on that, Eric? I mean, that was a goal. What's happened?
You provided your input on it. I need to administratively see if it's going to go anywhere. If we took it in context of the meeting we did a few months ago and what we're asking now, I think the input would be drop it as a goal objective.
Correct. And I think that's my concurrence right now. Now, the things I don't see up there is the lease reorganization. Where is that? That's a city goal.
That correct.
And what happened to that?
So here's what's happened with that. We got 3 more to go.
Oh,
that are on the have work plan. Then I go to the final list, which is the overall city goals, that has that one on there,
okay.
okay?
You did this to us at 9 o'clock at night?
Yeah, on purpose. Other items. Other item A was human observer requirement in groundfish fishery. Support changes in the human observer requirement to participate in the trawl sector of the West Coast groundfish fishery. 4 work plan elements to identify what the issues are, what a potential regulatory path forward is. Research and identify industry supportable options, and see if we can affect some sort of regulatory change. We do that on a smaller scale annually when we go back to Washington, D.C. to try and advocate for that kind of stuff, which we will continue to do. Beyond that, your humble staff has not had a lot of extra time and effort to look into putting into this. As part of the quota fund participation that I'm on the board there, the quota fund is highly involved and interested and engaged in that issue as well, and through that process and through that group, I do advocate in that direction as well. So we are doing this, but it's not as robust as the work plan would lead you to believe at this point, but I think it's a good thing to keep on. I would recommend keeping it on.
Okay.
Okay.
North-south?
Yeah.
Item B on there, working waterfronts. Keep, obviously, we're working on it.
Right.
We've talked that one enough tonight. Eelgrass mitigation, C.
We talked about that.
That's a keeper on that. All right. Getting down to the more of the wire. So now we go to the main city council goals. Would you like me, so there's 10 council goals. And I'll start with just the goal itself, and if you have no interest in putting any input on it whatsoever, we'll just move on. Develop a new wastewater treatment facility, water reclamation facility.
No.
No comment. Goal 2, city goal number 2, improve streets.
Improved streets.
I would have one recommendation for that goal to add an objective.
Yeah.
The street between Tognazzini's dockside and the fish dock.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a street, it's an alley. I don't know what its name is, but it's in horrible shape, and
Yep. I agree.
add fish dock alley
It's a good name for it.
Yeah.
as an objective.
It's really cute.
Okay?
Put a sign.
So that's under goal 2.
I want a sign.
What?
We're going to get a
We
sign.
need a sign, Fish
Sign.
Dock Alley. It's got a name now.
Guys are getting goofy.
Okay, let's move it.
Goal 3, review and update significant city land use plans. That's the general plan, local culture plan, the zoning, downtown waterfront strategic plan. We're already doing that through working waterfront.
Right.
So I'm assuming no other comment on there.
No.
Goal 4, maintain core public safety services. Public safety scrub of Morro Bay Municipal Code, we already talked about that. That's the one we've already fed into. The rest of them are not really pertinent to this department. So probably no comment on those.
No.
Other than the public safety scrub, which we're already doing. Goal 5, ensure fiscal sustainability. There's 7 of these on here. Budget forecast, complete a professional 10-year budget forecast. We've done that. We're doing that. Do you believe that continuing on with that budget forecasting tool is a good thing to do?
It is.
So I'm going to say we're recommending keep that, 5A, keep.
Right.
The other one, budget transparency,
And
citizen participation, review and refine the roles and responsibility of the citizens finance committee, community choice aggregation, budget policies, vehicle replacement policy, and recreation program. I'm assuming the rest of those are no comment.
No comment.
No, but back up to the first,
Budget
can we make a
forecasting?
recommend that it says citizen participation action, but on some of this budget transparency and budget forecast that continues to go through the Harbor Advisory Board and Ad Hoc Committee?
Yeah, I think our citizen finance committee is our ad hoc committee. So we will keep on with that. Okay. Goal 6, Support economic development. 6A is, Mr. LaFay, Title and Trust Lease Management Policy. Update and revise the city lease management policy. We need to update it. Recommend keeping it on?
Yes.
Okay. 6B, Economic Development Strategic Plan. C, Morbe Power Plant, consider providing support, including possible MOU to any entity pursuing demolition, remediation, and redevelopment of the power plant. Yeah, keep that on. Harbor Advisory Board recommends keeping that on. Okay. Business information on website, business incentives, commercial real estate inventory, aquarium project, G, obviously keep. I'm sitting, the rest, unless you speak up, I'm going to say the rest of them are no comment. Unless you think to drop it as I go through, you think scrub it, we shouldn't do it, otherwise no comment. Business improvement districts, that's something that got brought up through our talk with our leaseholders on the restroom stuff. And is there an interest among our waterfront leaseholders to form their own business improvement
Well, they used
district
to have one.
to collectively pay fees in to pay for additional restroom cleaning or power washing sidewalks or doing other waterfront only stuff?
I think that's a good goal. I'd
So-
like to pursue that.
Keep and
Waterfront
pursue.
Business Improvement District. We'll tax Neil more money and everyone else down there. No, seriously. I think it's
Pursue an
something-
Embarcadero specific one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and back up to the business informational website, maybe there
Yeah.
could be a focus on harbor-related businesses and some of the people who might necessarily have brick and mortars, but also provide services on the water that might be able to advertise through the website, such as
Okay.
mooring inspections.
Add harbor related services. Okay.
services.
In D, all right. I, Economic Development Code scrub, that's going to be a community development thing. Get rid of all the business unfriendly things. Maritime Museum, obviously keep and support. Marine Services Facility, keep and support. And tourism integration, probably no comment. And food trucks. Any opinion on food trucks?
you
Come
know
on, you don't
what?
want the
More
burrito
I
wagon
think
down the
about
road?
it, I don't like the idea, to be honest with you. I don't want to pursue it.
No comment?
I think it's just tacky. I don't know.
All right, I'm seeing
What
north-south.
bothers
Andy's
me
fine.
is approve events. You know, that's.
Yeah, this goal objective is to allow them at approved events, so Harbor Fest, other
Right, okay.
Avocado Margarita
Yeah,
Fest.
that's fine.
Okay. Keep for events only.
Yeah.
Is that meaning anytime there's a special use
Yeah.
event?
Yep.
So they can get permitted?
Yep. Okay, goal 7, improve city infrastructure, facilities, and public spaces. Market Street, Bluff, Centennial Parkway area revitalization, you're already working on that, keep it.
Oh, yeah.
Implementation of concept plans, including Centennial Parkway and Dark Promenade, other concept planning, keep them.
Big time.
Okay. ADA compliance improvements, the city's already hired an ADA consultant, they came through all of our stuff. It's a pretty huge list. Signage and branding, improve trash collection and public restroom cleaning. E, obviously, keep, right? Trash collection, restroom cleaning, tree trimming, probably no comment. Community beautification, no comment. Esh fencing, there's your esh fencing again.
Well, you know, let's
Already
go
did that.
back to E. Again, this whole restroom concept, I got so many emails this year. I know that they put some signs up, they tried to increase it, and, you know, a lot of the issues, if we had brand-new restrooms, we still have issues, but it seems to me that with the amount of tourists that came into town this year, there needs to be, at least from Friday to Sunday, at these peak times, almost 24, you know, almost someone needs to be on staff all the time because there's always a problem with these restrooms. And it's deplorable. And it's unfortunate because some people are just slobs. But that's the point. And then someone else comes in, and it's really a bad thing for our city. It really is, and it has to be resolved somehow or other.
Okay. Well, I know there's a fair amount of effort being pointed at it now.
I know
Just
that.
increase servicing, and then I think the next step is really analyze the levels of service and try and come up with a more robust plan rather than every day the guys come down at 5 o'clock. Figure out peak times when you need to come in and when the low times are, you don't need to come in to target the servicing most effectively. I think those efforts are underway and are going to continue to be underway to try and make it better.
Okay.
New restroom, that's a whole nother nut to crack. Esh fencing, we already said drop it. City Hall, we don't have comment on. Facility maintenance program, we don't have comment on. Goal 8, enhance quality of life, community pool planning, city-sponsored partnered events. The city's got certain events that it sponsors and partners with. A lot of them are water and Embarcadero oriented, probably keep on, right? Sea otter awareness, I think we said drop, but keep the efforts.
Hold on one second. Back up to H of the Esh fencing that we said to drop it.
Yes.
By us dropping it, that says that we have no comment on it. Were there comments that we wanted to go towards that, or?
Well, I think
it looks
or-
ugly.
Okay, well, so that's a comment. If he says no comment, they'll just say no comment. The harbor department doesn't care either way, right, Eric?
No, I
Or will our
think,
comment be,
no, we're saying drop that one.
Yeah.
okay,
We're not saying no comment.
we're saying remove it. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, drop it as a goal, objective. 8, sea otter awareness, drop it, but keep up the efforts, make it part of what we do. Pickleball, and probably don't have much to say unless we've come up with some sort of stand-up paddleboard pickleball or something, I don't know. Recreation guide, no comment. Vets hall renovation, no comment. Public meeting broadcast, no comment. Community paramedicine, that's a fire thing, no comment. Skate park, I'm assuming no comment. Okay, so there's 8. Goal 9, almost there. Improve water supply diversification, state water planning, desal permit, desal location, one water planning.
I think it's important. I mean, it's not really our bailiwick, but did they ever get the desal plant permit?
They're getting close on it.
approved?
Yeah, they're getting there.
Okay.
Yes, they are working on that.
Thank you.
I mean, maybe the Harbor Advisory Board input is not a no comment, is yes, this is important.
Yes,
Definitely keep it.
I think it's very important. Water is like gold.
Yeah. Do you want to, I won't even mention it, never mind. I was going to have a smart out comment, I won't go there. Improve city operations, goal 10. IT support, we're doing that. We're not particularly, we're just going along with whatever happens. IT, disaster protection, we're moving the city servers, not really anything to do with us. Records management, there's a part on that at the end of it that says begin digital scanning of Harbor Department records. We've started to do that with that consultant we've hired to start identifying things. I'm going to probably assume we want to keep on with that. Recommend the city keep that one because we do need to digitally scan our records. Compensation study, the city's, I think, done that, working on that. Lori, didn't we do that? Yeah, they did that. 10E.
So where are we with that, Eric?
Lease management office reorganization. Research and bring to council for consideration transferring harbor lease and property management functions to the administrative service department or another city department. That one.
What
10E. What's that?
It's management partner's recommendation.
It's a management partner's recommendation. As you know, the city council made a conscious effort to specifically say we are not going to do anything with farming out the police department, the fire department, or the harbor patrol. this goal objective was not an adopted harbor advisory board work plan goal objective, but it is a goal objective that was adopted by the council. I haven't done anything with it yet.
I would like it dropped.
Can you say that again?
I would like it dropped.
I would like it dropped too.
Okay.
I don't think we have enough on our plate here. As I came up to the city council, and I asked them to drop that and the maintenance, and they did not. But I would like to have it dropped again this year.
Okay. Morro Municipal City Reorganization, that's some other, not harbor-specific reorganizations. They're looking at in the Muni Code to update stuff that doesn't match what we do anymore. Succession planning, harbor maintenance, there's the one we talked about already. You already said drop that. How many times? Oh, you already discussed it, another item. GIS, Geographic Information Services, community development's already working on that. We just tag along and whatever happens, happens. And community resource connections. City working with other community resources and helping them along. So those are probably all NAs unless you have some strong feeling one way or the other. Anything else you want to add that's not on any of these lists?
Alan?
When I was reading through that working waterfront goal, I saw that they kept talking about mapping, and I was wondering how you would go about that, who would do it?
It could play into the GIS programming where you have different layers of stuff that you can put on and take off.
Now,
And see
Eric,
what's happening in the different
You know,
areas.
since it is getting a little late, but am I right to assume that there will be an occasion that we as individuals can go to the city council, goal setting, and make comments?
Yes.
Have an opportunity still.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if we
I'll-
feel strongly that there's still something that's unanswered after we leave tonight, we don't want to feel like we've been rushed. But I am getting a little tired. That we do have that opportunity.
You're going to have that opportunity as an individual, so when you want to tell them to paint the water tank on Elena pink, you can do that. There will be an opportunity as a Harbor Advisory Board and in joint meetings to come do that as well. And I'll run quick, and I'm not sure why it's not a slide, but, oh, geez, Louise. The tentative process is as follows. The first one on there we're doing right now, December 13th, the City Council is going to get a goal strategic planning overview, which is really the new council seated. Here's how we handle goals, folks, and this is what's on the list right now. It's not a really decision-making thing. It's just an overview. January 10th, goal study session number 1. January 24th, these are both council meeting dates. Goal study session number 2. January, February next year, advisory board and bodies start working on our work plans to enable our goals, assuming out of the goal study sessions we get some direction. February 14th, in addition to buying chocolate for our loved ones, the city council goals discussion will continue to carry on. And February 28th, we'll adopt our final goals and work plans and all the good stuff that goes along with it. And then March 2017, advisory boards and bodies will finalize all of our work plans and more joint council advisory board meetings and adopt our work plans with the city council and then try to get something done. So there you have it. So yes, to answer your question and shortly, yeah, there's going to be ample
So do
opportunity
we
as
have
individuals.
anything that we want to add right now that is pertinent? That
To the, anything you want to add pertinent to the harbor?
Yeah, pertinent to the
Harbor waterfront.
Neil?
That was a lot to digest. I'm just trying to think if we didn't cover it all or not. We might.
We covered most of it in our own HAB goals,
Right.
a lot of it there that will feed in.
Gene?
Yes, if the Harbor Advisory Board finds something that's very important to us, I think that should be a goal that should be accepted to the city council. That's a goal.
A goal to be able to do your own goals.
Clear a pathway for our recommendations.
No,
to
I
make it onto the goal.
I concur. There needs to be,
Great
there
point.
needs, yeah.
Clear pathway for our recommendations.
I mean, the pathway now, Eric, as you well know, and I'll repeat that to people who don't know, at least as the chairman, if we bring up something to the city council that's not on their goal and agenda, I have to send a letter to the council and then they have to take that letter. I have no idea if they even see it, and then they have to consider it. And the two ones that I did send letters to, which was the relief for the crab and some other, I think the Marine Sanctuary, I heard nothing back from anyone. Now, I don't know whose fault that is, but there's still the two-way street is still not there. Completely. Unless it's in this document of all the goals that they've told us to do, they're not going to listen to us.
And this is, this is my fourth year working on this. First couple of years under different city administration, and so we handled it differently, and now we've got a new process, and we're starting the third year of that process. So it is evolving as a process, and we're all learning how to make it function best. So I'll just sort of a caveat I'll throw on there. But okay, we got another agenda item. Anything else on that? Any other adds to goals? Harbor goals? Anything else burning?
No,
desires?
we're fine. Okay, so...
And there's opportunity to bring them up later.
Yeah, look, I'm running the meeting here now, Eric. What we'd like to do here
No, you're not.
is the cancelization of the January 2017 Harbor Advisory Board meeting. Would I like motion to, you make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to cancel the January Harbor Advisory Board meeting, and we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Meeting is adjourned. We'll see you in February.
Let's see, a motion to adjourn?
Right? Oh, do we have a motion to adjourn? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn, and we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Merry Christmas.
I apologize.
Merry Christmas, everybody.